can, but I'm gonna kick you.
You can't reach.
I can't reach.
So are we confident that Gus knows it's definitely here tonight?
Your sound's
I saw him no way today.
All right.
I talked to him earlier today.
Somebody has to reach out to Amy or school or something and find out whether they get any contact with it.
Okay.
They had what?
Concrete board. Did you ask Mo?
Mo said
None that he's read. Okay. But only if it's Tresca. No, it's any quick pour.
Well, the concrete that was poured for the front entrance to the auditorium for this high school sucks. Like there's one section you can tell we got a shit ton.
But that was not in the last 2 years, though, right? Yeah. No, that was prior.
So we just got a shit with it.
Yeah, that's just.
It's funny. You walk by and it's like
Stuck with
it's
that.
deteriorating, and then it's not bad.
There's a lawsuit that's brought in the name of 40-some odd municipalities, like the former Tresca drive.
Oh, really?
It's just an issue.
So who did this? Who did the cement going down Metacommon Street?
TPW.
Yeah, I don't know what they got it.
Because any new sidewalks would be cement.
But that was more. That was more than 2 years ago, right?
We already answered previous.
I know.
So this is just.
More follow up. We love
Oh,
follow up.
no.
Greetings. You know, it actually specifies a concrete contract, one of them besides Justin Franklin, we didn't heard of before. So we don't get no information.
These guys aren't gonna be found somewhere, are they?
Recording in progress.
Eileen, do you walk over?
Normally I would, but I wasn't sure if we were getting rain later on, so I didn't want to get caught in the. So tonight I'd really. Normally for town meetings I walk.
All of a sudden I realized you live close.
Yeah, I'm very close. It's almost embarrassing that I don't.
Mr. Marcucci, why?
Oh, Mike, why did you make it so expensive on the bar?
He came right.
Ah,
Okay.
I knew we'd be in trouble if you walked into the suit.
Mike, I'll give up my seat tonight if you want a little tempting.
I get to leave.
Seems so unfair. Oh yeah.
You get a chatter over here? See what's happening?
Ooh, okay.
Is working?
I think it's just because I was so close.
But it
will be fine.
What is better, having a mat over my shoulder or just on a blur so you don't want to see what's over my shoulder? What is blur? The TV's right over my shoulder. Alright, so you want to select share my screen ahead of time, so we're not gonna bubble.
Yep, already did that.
Okay.
So you should be good to go.
So if in theory we're not broadcasting except for.
So, I'll have two contracts for vehicles. Those two contracts that, I'll make those changes and I'll send it back to you. And then, that'll be for the next meeting. And then we're gonna do that presentation for the sidewalk ADA prioritization.
I think Mike's gonna be here in person.
Okay.
He was gonna do it online, and I was like, well, last week we had to reschedule it. He's like, I'll be back.
Yeah, the one you gave me had like a year delivery date.
On their thing?
No, well, that's what you would put in the form.
On our contract?
Yeah.
Okay. So
So
I'll get
rather
rid of
than
that.
flagging, I didn't know if it was a lease or what that was.
No, it's probably just from another vehicle that we ordered.
Oh,
So these,
they're
these,
coming off the lot.
these are on the lot. So there's one that's
You're not,
green.
you're not doing anything to them?
No, one's green, so it's painted. And then one of them is an F600 instead of a 550.
They're not gonna retrofit you or anything.
She's kind of been editing.
No, they just left
We
over.
will get her all set up and ready to go. She's very anxious to get her documents.
All right, got it right this week. Hi, guys.
With a minute to spare.
A minute to spare. And that's only, it would have been better than that, except the red light was red for a long time at the main intersection.
I'll look at them when you're
Still. You looking for power supply?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to need one, but,
You're saying that, you know you're going to.
well, based on the agenda, it should be a short, extra life already? Okay, well, I haven't said anything inappropriate yet.
Nope.
I could. I don't think there are, and that's okay. I Chris? think last time I died, but.
Chris, I'm getting audio feedback again this meeting, so I'm not gonna be on the Zoom.
Okay.
But I can always count on somebody to let me know I need to mute my speaker and my mic before I go too far down the road here. Let's see. There's my battery. My battery says I'm full charge. That's a good start.
If we needed one, I think it's way down there.
Yeah, well, that's a little too far.
Yeah, I know.
That's all right. Worst that happens is I just drop off. Get on.
And Jake Cram is here, and he is the Power Home remodeling, and we've tested the sound, and it should be all good. He just let me know again that he was
Okay,
here.
that's great. Oh, come on, give me a break. Okay, if I do this, then sure, add it. It is added.
I'm going to put a section on the website. Yeah, I don't like
Well, that doesn't do much good for me. Get out of that. Minimize. Guest info, view map. Make that go away. Make that go away. Go over here. Here we go.
Alrighty then.
No one wants to talk to me.
No records. Go down here. Agenda. There. That should work. That's good. Open. What's that mean? Oh, wait a minute, it was. You're supposed to be on. Supposed to be off. I clicked them both. I must have turned them on. Weird. All right. This. Good. Start the video. There we are. All right. Oh, come on, where we go? There we go.
everybody ready to go?
Yeah, I'm good if you're
We're
good.
all good? Medfield? Oh, there you are. Okay. Very good. Well, let's see. Welcome, everyone, to the November 1st Medfield Board of Selectmen meeting. This meeting will be held in a hybrid format. The Board of Selectmen will attend in person, and members of the public may attend in person. In addition, members of the public who wish to participate via Zoom may do so by joining one of the links that's shown on the meeting agenda, which is accessible on the town website under the Board of Selectmen agendas. One other point, we are going to be video recording tonight. This is being streamed live by Medfield TV. So if you are here in the room and you want to speak, we'll ask you to come up to the podium with the microphone. When you do that and you speak, you'll notice that it doesn't amplify your voice in the room. It's strictly intended to pick up the audio feed for Medfield TV. So you don't have to yell louder or anything. You just be close to the microphone. One thing we'd like to do to start off our meeting is just take a moment of appreciation for our service members who are serving the country across the globe. Thank you. Okay, the very first appointment we have tonight is Chief Garrett to request the appointment of John McKenna as a special police officer. Chief, podium's yours.
So I'm very pleased to say we are looking to appoint Mr. McKenna as a police officer. He was an reserve intermittent with Rockland and with Falmouth, I believe. Since then, he's gone through a background. I actually was just reading the final background report related to something else. But he's a bright young man. He comes from a law enforcement family. He really enjoys kind of that small town feel, having worked in some smaller communities. I've met and spoken with him extensively, and I think he'd be a great addition for us to start with right now, and then potentially look at transferring over his reserve intermittent status so that we could put him on as a full-time officer.
Okay.
And that would simply be, right now, we could put him in as a special. I would sponsor him for the Bridge Academy, which he's able to work and complete online. There are a couple of facets that he has to attend in person, but ultimately it's a pretty seamless transition for us to have a fully uniformed and authorized officer while sponsoring them through an academy.
Okay.
So it's a unique opportunity.
That's great. Okay. Any questions or comments?
No, I think that's excellent.
Pete?
No questions. Glad to hear that you found somebody. Thank you.
Yep. And on that note, the second background I was just looking at is for a potential civil service transfer. We are going to move through it with the remaining medical items that we have to take care of just for post certification, and I should be before the board if he accepts within the next week or two for a second full lateral transfer.
That's great. Very good.
Good.
Motion.
Move to request the appointment of, to appoint John McKenna as a special police officer.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. Next, we have the continuation of the public hearing for the following applications to solicit. This is for Power Home remodeling. There are three people that are being requested: Jacob Cram, Anthony Saster, and Sean Aguirre. And I think we have Jacob Cram available, and with the his Zoom link working, audio and everything, where we had a little difficulty last week. So,
hey, how you guys doing?
good. How are you doing, Jacob?
Pretty good. Got stuck in some traffic, so sorry. I'm in the car here, but
I thought you were dialing in from a bar or something from the.
not this time.
Okay, what do you got for us?
So we are going door to door for the solicitation for free estimates on siding, windows, and doors and roofs.
And I think the official dates were basically beginning of October out through, well, actually, two are out through the end of December, and one. Was Sean looking for different dates? Because today was the expiration date of the requested time period.
He must have messed that one up. It should be the same for all three.
So we'll do December 31st.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. All right, so we'll change that one to well, let's change it to January 1st. It's just easier editorially.
Mr.
So-
Chairman, you should redeclare the hearing opened
I
again.
thought I just did, but I declare that the public meeting is reopened. I wasn't quite enough off the agenda, I guess. All right. One of these years, you're going to get me trained, Mark. Okay, are there any questions?
You wanna change October 1st to November 1st, since it really hasn't started? Like, all of them should go November 1st to January 1st?
If it, sure.
Just kinda makes more sense, because it's
Yeah.
30 days of appointment.
So, do you have any objections to that, Sean? We're gonna put the start dates all as November 1st.
This is Jake, but that is fine.
Who did I say, Sean? Sorry about that. Yeah, so what that means is if you guys were out without our authorization, you're in a lot of trouble if you've already been out.
No,
All right.
sir.
Questions, comments, besides that?
No, we should be good.
Pete, any questions or comments?
What days of the week are you looking to do this?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Which days of the week?
It's Monday through Friday and every other Saturday.
And I guess if we should probably go down the hours. What hours of those days?
Yep. Monday through Friday is 12 to 6, and then
Okay.
Saturday is 11 to 3.
12 to 6 and 11 to 3. Okay,
Sir.
very good. Any other questions?
No, that was it.
Any comments from the public? I hereby declare this public hearing closed. I will entertain a motion to approve the 3 requests.
I would move to approve the request to solicit from Power Home Remodeling for the period from November 1 to January 1 of next year, Monday through Friday and every other Saturday, 12 to 6 on Monday through Friday, and 11 to 3 on Saturdays.
For those three named individuals.
For the 3 named individuals, Jacob McCain, Anthony Saster, and Sean Aguilar.
And it's Jacob Cram, not McCain, but yes.
That's all right, close enough.
All right, second?
Okay, all those in favor?
I,
Aye, opposed, motion carries. That took a while, Jacob, but at least we took care of it today pretty quickly.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just a reminder for them to check in with the police.
Yeah, yes. Jacob, that, basically, anytime you are going to be out, you should let the police department know where you're going to be so that when they get calls about strangers in their neighborhood and they don't know who they are, the police will be able to identify you as the ones that are there.
Yes, sir. It makes it easier for both of us.
Great. All right, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Have a good day, guys. Bye-bye.
Okay, take care. Next, we have Rick Fink to continue the discussion about the community event at the gazebo on Wednesday, November 23rd from 11:30 a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m., which will include entertainment, free food, and drinks for Medfield school children following their early release before Thanksgiving. This is a continuation of the discussion from last week.
Right, so, the motivation here is I feel like Medfield's become divided and grumpy, and I just want my community back, so I gotta be the change, right? So we're gonna have a great time heading into the 4-day weekend. Everyone can get behind the kids. That's something we all can agree on. We want what's best for the kids. And what do kids want? They want pizza, and they want soda, and parents want a little free time to get the turkey ready and all that stuff. And so that's what we would provide. That's basically the idea here. Last week when I was here, you gave me, we discussed some boxes that we need to check, right? It's got some homework. So I have a status update. I'll just briefly run through this and keep it short. Bridget Sweet with the Board of Health is on board helping us. She is, we need a ServSafe certified pizza distributor, and we are gonna get that, and Bridget's gonna help us, right, Ms. Trewiler? Okay, terrific. So I feel like that checks the health concern box. As far as public safety goes, Ms. Garrett has recommended that we have a police detail to help kids with street crossings, and then also pickups, which, I've made the suggestion that take place down behind the Avenue Restaurant around the curve there, but that's just my 2 cents. I'm willing to do whatever I'm told. As far as volunteers go, I've reached out to Erica Cody, who's been the most responsive and helpful. She's the teen librarian at the Medfield Public Library. And she put a great email out looking for help with crowd control, setup, cleanup, helping with announcements for raffles, that sort of thing. Also, she came up with the idea, because we're looking for entertainment, that maybe some of these high school garage bands want to perform. So if you know some kids that are in some kind of musical arrangement, they can get the gazebo for like 20, 30 minutes, and we can just rotate through there. I think that'd be a neat thing. I'd love to have the high school kids more involved. Also with art installations, if they want to do that, kind of like a mini Burning Man, only not just as weird, you know?
This is going to raise a lot more questions now.
Well, yeah, that's why I said not as weird. Last time I gave my email out, and I got some responses from parents that want to help out with money, which is great. You can always follow me on Venmo, rick-fink-1, or you can just shoot me an email, rickfinkjr@gmail. Yeah, we'll take a donation. I think we're good there. But if you wanted to help out and just be on site, more the merrier. Because we're gonna have games. We want to do like cornhole and things like that. You know, maybe a carnival barker that can guess your weight. I don't know. We'll think about that. Yeah, that was a joke, guys. I wouldn't really. It sounded funnier when I rehearsed that in the car on the way in. I also have some sponsorships that are willing to help out, local bookstore, grocery store, and still just got feelers out in that regard. And I spoke with Abby Marble from the food pantry, who is on board with this idea that we do a can drive. Specifically, and if you want to get a head start now, what we're looking for is hearty soup cans, like Progressive soup, not like these condensed soups, but the big hearty winter soups. So at any time. But if a kid brings a can or whatever, they get a raffle ticket. Raffle ticket will get you some prizes. And that's all we want to do, from like noon to 3, 11:30 to 3. As far as sanitation goes, I did a little audit. I'll share this information with you. Department of Public Works says Parks and Rec is responsible for that. Parks and Rec says the library is responsible for that. And the library says that they've been taking a lot of criticism for trash on the park.
I'll take care of that.
Okay.
Well, we'll take care of that. Yeah. Live.
And finally, I just wanted to ask, does this park have a name? Because I've just been referring to it as the park with the gazebo in it.
The gazebo.
Gazebo Park?
Yeah.
I think I'd motion to come up with a more creative name than that for another time.
How about a contest that day?
Let's do it. I like it. Add that to the list. Okay. What do you think? Can we get this permit?
Yeah, I think it's great. I love the idea that you're going to be asking the kids to bring cans of food, donate to the food pantry. So will that be educated through, or I should say communicated through the schools? Like, how will the kids get a reminder that, come have pizza, have some soda, but, help the pantry as well?
Well, I will take advantage of our limited media streams in town. I guess the Medfield Insider, the Patch, the Hometown Weekly, which needs a week in advance, so I'd want to get this going soon. I did talk to Mrs. Caulfield at Wheelock School, but I would talk to the other principals as well, see if they could put that in a newsletter or a morning announcement.
And what about, I would think some families, if they are leaving early, maybe they can drop it off a day early or so. So the kids that can't participate but still want to contribute, it would be an option.
Yeah, I just have to work out some logistics, the who, what, where, when. But yeah, that's a good idea. Yep.
No, I think it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pete?
I think it's a great idea, too. Thanks for working through the checklist with Chris, and good luck with it.
Okay, thanks.
Burning Man Park, I think that's a good name.
I have to say, Rick, my mind got distracted when you made that point, only because in my head I was saying, would it be better to have it be a mini Burning Man or a mini Woodstock? And I wasn't really sure which would be
Not
worse.
Woodstock 99.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, no,
okay.
no.
So you just got me off my entire track. Yeah. Just a couple of questions. One is, one question, one comment. When we had talked before, last week, we talked a little bit about who what student population was being targeted to be the participant. So all the more high school volunteers, the better. But is this Wheelock, and is Wheelock?
Yeah, I'm
Dale,
thinking this would probably cater mostly to Wheelock and Dale.
Okay.
If the high school kids are hanging out and they want to stop in, get a slice, play some
Yeah.
cornhole, listen to their friends
Yeah.
jam, that's cool too. You know, I mean, we can,
Okay. And then the only other thing,
Come on.
and Chief, you're in the back, so you might have, I appreciate your suggestion that people pick their kids up around the corner at Avenue. The only thing that, and I was the one who said, make sure you don't have them all park in the Brothers parking lot, so
Yep.
I'm not necessarily steering there, but it seems like it'd be better if the pickup was on the same side of 109 as the event, so.
That was actually Rick's suggestion.
Yeah.
And I was gonna just step up and say, probably not my first choice.
Okay,
We tend to get really congested in that area to begin with. I know you're talking about younger students having to cross
Right.
the street. We all know they're
Right.
not gonna go up to South, be up to South and cross the crosswalk, but
Right.
they should.
Right.
So I think something either on the same side and then maybe just a little bit further away from that area
Right.
right in front of Town Hall that gets really backed up. But that's something we can
okay.
sit down and find an alternative.
We could do Pleasant
okay.
Street.
Yeah, maybe with even with the historic, if it's just pick
Yeah.
up the two parking spaces at historic.
We're talking about, so whether he does something on Facebook and it's kind of a, yes, I'm interested, yes, I'm attending,
Mhm.
gives us a better idea of the
Right.
support we need for pedestrian traffic.
Okay,
That's a good idea. Okay.
Great.
So I'll talk with you and then we'll put those details in a press release and start
Okay.
disseminating that information.
Mark?
In terms of public safety, do you need to address medical standby of some sort?
You know what, I did think about, what if a kid chokes on a big chunk of pizza? You know, they're having so much fun, they're choking on a piece. I wouldn't know what to do personally. I'll just concede that. So maybe we call the fire department.
I would think if we have, I mean, all the different things the kids do on their own without that kind of supervision.
Yep.
Doesn't sound like we would if we have police officers there on the site. That's, we're only a quarter mile from the fire department if there was something more significant. So my own reaction would be that's probably overkill, but
Okay.
I can be taught, I'm not the expert. I'm open to anyone who's thinking I'm being cavalier and irresponsible.
No, I don't think so.
Think we're all right? Okay, so I think you're all right there. Okay.
Great. Great.
Once again, in a motion.
Move to approve the event as indicated.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Motion carries. Thanks, Rick.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right.
Look forward to seeing how this works.
Me too.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. All right, next item that we have is Mike Pastore, the new OPEB Trust Committee Chair, making his annual presentation on the OPEB Trust Fund performance.
At least for tonight, Gus. All right, well, thank you for having me. Very excited to be here to talk about OPEB. For the uninitiated, it's non-pension post-employment benefits, so health, dental, vision, prescription. Little bit of background as to why we have the trust fund to begin with. And Gus, I know you will correct me if and when I am incorrect in the background. But 2004, GASB issued a statement on how governments should account for OPEB. Municipalities throughout the state were not reporting it this way, Medfield included, and therefore not accounting for the true cost of OPEB. The statement did not come with a funding requirement. So even when municipalities started accounting for it correctly, they weren't necessarily funding for the OPEB liability. And around 2015, Medfield decided to fund the OPEB liability, which is how we get to today with our OPEB trust fund and this update. I first found out about the liability in 2017 when a plucky young first-time selectman candidate, Gus Murby, had mentioned it at a candidates forum, and I thought it was terrifying, frankly, and I was glad that someone had had pointed it out and that we were taking care of it, and I thought I'm going to vote for that guy. Sadly, I was also running against him at the time, but I stand by my decision. So, Christine, if we can move to the next slide. These are kind of the high-level highlights for the trust performance. Starting in FY17, you can see, the returns have been good, but they've been decreasing. We had 12.8% in FY17, fluctuated a little bit, and this past year was the first time we're in the red at 2.3%. But even though the return is down, the amount credited has still been greater, and we are closing that gap. And partly that reason is what we'll deem structural changes, basically actuarial assumptions changing year to year. That we had some built-in wiggle room that has gone in a positive direction. We think we're probably at the end of those structural changes, so really the contributions as well as investment performance is going to be the difference going forward. But we're going in a positive position. Go to the next slide, please. This shows our liability status as of June 30th, 22. The two kind of most important numbers there, the two in bold, the total OPEB liability for the fiscal years, 34.5 million. Compare that to when we started in 2017, around 42 million. And then the unfunded accrued liability at 28.6 million. Next slide, please. Great. So this kind of gives us a view year over year, contributions and balance. And if you skip down to the bottom of the page, the year-end balance for 22 was 5,897,842. And the balance as of the end of September this year is slightly under that, 5,736,895. And the last page is a handy little bar graph showing the trend in our long-term obligation. And as you can see from that top line, it's moving progressively in the right direction as we get closer and closer to hopefully zero at some point. So that is all I prepared by way of presentation, but happy to take any questions and to defer them immediately to Gus.
Questions?
Do we have a projected when we really do have kind of a stake in the ground as to when we think we can get this closer to zero?
Deferring to Gus.
So when GASB first came up with this, they actually required a pro forma calculation and drove a third to basically close the gap in 30 years. So that going back to the beginning of this line graph here, they basically wanted us to pay it off in 30 years. That would have probably required us to have spent about $750,000 a year every year from the start. And we started off at $300,000. At the time, I think I was actually on the warrant committee, and my view was, first off, there's no rule that says we have to do it, and there's really no reason that you should have to get this thing all closed in 30 years. We probably took 50 years to dig the hole. Seems to me it would have been okay to have taken 50 years to dig out of the hole. So we have not targeted a specific year to close the gap. And basically what we're doing through our financial policies is working to continually build that up. So now we're at, what, 525,000 would be the amount that's gone in this year. And the policy will have us continue to increase that. Right now what we do is we're putting money into OPEB, And on top of that, we're completely paying all the benefits out of our taxes. So the way this is set up is that there's an assumption that you're going to be paying your benefits and contributing to OPEB to kind of get that balance where it needs to be. But instead, all we're doing is we're putting money into the balance. And then on top of that, we're paying the direct benefits right now the way we always used to, which was called pay-as-you-go. What that results in is that the amount of money that we are paying out is more than the incremental increase in the liability when the actuaries look and extend the projection out a year. They retire 1 year of liability and add an out year of liability, and that actually works to our benefit each year. So we're trying, you can see the trend. You can't quite straight line it because what we're starting to see now is some market fluctuations that are causing differences, and that probably only get greater when you have more and more in your account. Than the gross amount of the swings will be both higher and lower. But I think we're on a good trend. At some point, we'll sit there and say we have the balance we need, and that pay-as-you-go thing will drop out of our budget, and we'll start actually turning money over in the trust fund.
Okay, that was helpful.
Yep.
Happy to answer your questions.
Nicely said, Mike.
Pete, any?
I was just wondering where who's managing the money?
Gus?
Prit. So when we first transferred the money, and actually some of the benefits that you see is that in the early stages had to do with the way that GASB specified how you would calculate your liability. And so basically, for instance, when we took the money that we had been accumulating in just a reserve fund, and we legally transferred it into a trust fund that you can't take it back out of for other reasons, GASB allowed you to take greater credit in your discount rates to get some benefits. So we've only put the $6 million in, and you can see we've dropped our liability by more than that. That's all the mechanical changes that we made. When we put the money into the trust fund, the other question we had to answer is who should we allow to manage this money? We looked at 3 different alternatives. PRIT, the Public Retirement Investment Trust, I think it is. It's basically the same organization that manages like teachers' pensions, state pensions. We looked at that against 2 other alternatives, and it appeared that PRIT was the best choice just based on performance. One of the things about PRIT that was different was that it's such a large fund that they have the ability to not just simply invest in the market. They will buy like forests and sell lumber, and so the diversification of their investments is greater than what you would normally see. Maybe even if you put it like with Fidelity, they don't do that kind of stuff. And so far, as you've seen from the annual returns, we've been happy with those returns. They've certainly been, toward the top end of what investment management companies have been able to do. So in a way, it felt like the lock-in answer that everybody should would be likely to go to, but the committee actually took an objective look. There's actually, you can see our criteria that we used, and so far it's proven to be a good decision. Questions from the group? Or?
All right.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I would just like to compliment the new incoming committee chair doing a far better job than I ever have at explaining all this stuff.
I did change the color.
You did. Yes, you did. It reads much better with that color, I think, actually, Mike. All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Next, we have the Causeway Street community to discuss safety on Causeway Street. I guess we can leave. We have received a letter from you all with certain requests, but do you have a spokesperson that wants to lead this off? We'll let as many people speak as would like to.
I'll set the stage, Jessica. So good evening. My name's Karen Schneider, and I live on Jade Walk just off of Causeway Street. I'm here tonight to support the residents of Causeway and their families in the mission to improve pedestrian safety on Causeway and other streets in Medfield. My husband, Joel Wasick, and I moved to Medfield 10 years ago. We have 2 children, Amelia and Elliot, who are 8 and 10 years old. We spent a lot of time on Causeway, either running, walking our dog, or hiking the surrounding reservation land. We felt so lucky to have wooded areas and roads like Causeway in our backyard. On May 20th, my husband Joel woke up and went on a run. It was a sunny morning, and the Celtics had just won a playoff game the night before, so I guarantee he woke up feeling good and that he was energized. At 7:20, I received a call from Beth Israel Deaconess in Needham, and they said that Joel was in their emergency department and he had passed away. He went on a run like any other morning, but this time he didn't come home. I haven't walked my dog or run on Causeway since that day in May because I am my children's only parent now, and if it could happen to Joel, then it could happen to me. I am a member of the Souls of Medfield, and they immediately took action, and they created signs to raise awareness about pedestrian safety. You can now see the Share the Road signs on nearly every road in Medfield, and this came about due to my husband's death. The residents of Causeway also began to email and organize soon after my husband's death. Many of them also use Causeway to walk their dogs and exercise, and their kids' bus stops line the road. My kids' bus stop is on the road as well. They drafted a letter to the police chief and gathered signatures from nearly all residents on the road, and that's why they were invited to speak to you today. It's been a little over 5 months since Joel's death, and I don't want anyone to forget the tragedy. I ask that you keep this in your minds and hearts as you consider the suggestions and the requests from the residents of Causeway and other roads in Medfield. I lived at the bottom of Pine before Jade Walk. That was just as bad. And as you think about reorganizing the Town Safety Committee. 30% of Medfield's population is under 18. We should be concerned about our children and try to protect them as they walk to school, walk downtown on half days, play sports, or go to visit their friends. 80 to 100 individuals are members of the Souls of Medfield, and they're not the only ones in town who use our roads to exercise. I met with all 3 of you soon after my husband's death to talk about the circumstances and my family's concern about pedestrian safety in this town. I also met with Chief Garrett, Director of Public Works, Maurice Goulet, Town Administrator Christine Trierweiler, and State Representative Sean Dooley as well. And I believe more can be done, and so do these other residents that are sitting here today. There are a number of short-term strategies that could be explored to improve safety. One such low-hanging fruit suggested by the residents of Causeway is to routinely mow the roadside to improve visibility for both drivers and pedestrians. For example, it could be about a monthly basis. It just should be regularly scheduled. Another easy to enact improvement would be increased signage. Currently, the existing speed limit is 30 miles per hour, and it's posted in 2 or 3 places on the road, and most of those locations are near Medfield Center at the end of Causeway. So drivers coming from Norfolk, Millis, and towns on the opposite end of Causeway drive for 1.5 miles before seeing any speed limit sign. The residents of Causeway in their letter also mentioned the speed radar display trailer. There was a trailer parked on Causeway for a few weeks after my husband's accident, and they believe that that really made a difference to have that radar sign there. I noticed that there's a new solar-powered radar sign that was put up on Monday, and I was really happy to see that. I just hope there's going to be another one put on the other side for people who are driving into town, who are coming off of the road just past the Stop River Bridge. These signs seem like low-hanging fruit as well, and something the community can rally around and help raise funds if needed. I know the Souls have talked about fundraising for signage. Finally, removable speed bumps could be considered. They will slow drivers down and can also be thought of as a deterrent, shifting traffic to the main roads and minimizing traffic on the more country roads of town that are being used as cut-throughs. The driver involved in my husband's accident was not from Medfield, and I was told that she was on her way to work, so that means she was using Causeway as a cut-through. Because they're removable, they could be put in storage for the winter if DPW is concerned about plows hitting the speed bumps. There are a variety of opportunities to improve the safety of our roads right now, and I hope that the Board of Selectmen, the police, DPW, and the Safety Committee can take action in the next few months to implement some of these changes. I understand there are a variety of reasons for not adopting any changes or thinking we should take our time in implementing changes, but I don't think that's acceptable at this point. I ask that you keep an open mind when discussing options with Medfield residents and that you work to find a compromise without immediately dismissing any of the ideas. Perfection shouldn't be the enemy of progress. There's likely no perfect solution to our safety problem in the town, but there are still small steps that we can take to make Medfield a little safer. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Anybody? Yes.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jess Russo. Since I moved here in 2016, every time I was attending a neighborhood event on Causeway, the conversation would inevitably turn to how dangerous our street is. Because as you stand in someone's front yard and look out over the street, there are so many opportunities to see the problems. The speeding, the distracted driving, and the variety of ways that our street is being used on a regular basis. And the way that Causeway is designed now, it just can't safely serve the multiple uses that we put upon it. Causeway serves first and foremost as our neighborhood. We don't have a cul-de-sac, but it's our neighborhood. It's a recreation area. It provides access to trails, to the river, to nature preserves. It's for people. It's for people who walk, bike, jog. It's for people heading to the river to go kayaking. Sorry. It's for kids. It's for people walking their dog. And it's for the kids who are just waiting for their bus in the morning. It's also for those of us who are heading to work, or going out on an errand, or coming home at night. So it's for cars, too. We understand that. But unless the other purposes of the road are recognized and reflected in the design of the road, then it's not going to be safe for anyone. So my own experience over the past 5 months has made me think a lot about behavior change. What does it take to shift your awareness and your attitude so that you actually do things differently? What does it take to get up and get out of the house 5 minutes earlier so that you can drive a little slower on your way to work and still get there on time? To see the roads that you drive on as belonging to a community of people and not just to the cars. So I know what opened my eyes. So when I'm on my way, I take a cut through Dover to get to Needham every day for my work. But now when I'm driving, I see the people. And I recognize that the road has more than just one purpose. So what I'd like to see on Causeway Street are design changes that acknowledge the people who live and play here, that increase driver awareness of the people. I'd like to see reduced speeds, posted clearly and often. I think that it's crazy on our narrow little street that can barely accommodate 2 cars passing one another, that we have the same speed limit as other streets that have sidewalks on both sides and a double line down the middle. I'd like to see signs alerting drivers to the hikers, the bikers, the joggers, the children that use our road. I'd like to see widened and maintained shoulders wherever possible, because as I said, the road is narrow, and if there's nowhere for someone to step out of the way to safety, that's a disaster waiting to happen. And I'd like to see enforcement, because sometimes changing attitudes requires a little bit of pain, and enforcement actually works. You get pulled over a couple of times on the cut through that you take to work, and you're going to slow down. You're going to change your behavior. So if Causeway ends up with a reputation for a lousy place to cut through because you might get pulled over, I would welcome that warmly. My son wanted me to add that we only got a couple of trick-or-treaters this year. And we were just wondering if it might be that kids just don't feel safe walking on our road, doing what they used to do. So thank you for the opportunity for us to speak with you tonight. Appreciate it. We're committed to working with the town to make whatever changes we can to improve things.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Megan Chip, and I live at 67 Causeway Street. Joel's accident took place right in front of my home while my children were getting ready for school. One of the many reasons that we bought our home was for the beauty of the location. The sunsets year-round are breathtaking, and we are surrounded by wildlife. The road itself is a scenic roadway, and it should be. On any given day, all year long, you will see people out, walking their dogs, running, or cycling with friends, artists painting or photographing the river, the landscape, or the animals, middle schoolers and high schoolers riding their bike, and countless people heading to fish or put their canoe or kayak in the water. It's beautiful, and it's peaceful, and it's serene until it's not. Our home is the last house before the long, straight stretch of road that goes over the river. Several times a week, more frequently in the summer, people will stop directly in front of our home, rev their engines, and peel down that straightaway at high speeds. Equally concerning, as previously mentioned, are the cars that are traveling towards 109, entering our residential neighborhood at speeds well over the posted 30 miles per hour. Additionally, as previously stated, the road is used as a commuter cut-through from Norfolk and Millis towards 109. While urban sprawl has increased traffic in general, Causeway is being used for a way it is not designed for. Each morning, I wait at the end of my driveway for the bus with my kindergartner, who's 6, and my 5th grader, who is 11. They play two-square or soccer, and I hold my breath in anticipation that their ball is going to roll into the street. During that time of day, it is nerve-wracking for even me as an adult to go into the road to retrieve a ball for my children. The number of drivers coming off that straightaway during the morning commute time, traveling over the speed limit, far exceeds those traveling at the speed limit. Oftentimes it feels as though we live on the straightaway of a NASCAR course. Causeway cannot exist as a major cut-through and a scenic roadway to ensure safely being used for recreational activity by Medfield members. As a runner myself and a member of the Souls of Medfield, I've experienced more than a few close calls myself. There is little to no shoulder, coupled with the narrow width of the street, has made for many dangerous situations during many of my runs. Given the residential community and many recreational uses of this road, I'm asking to think of additional ways to make it safer for our families, our neighbors, and our children. Speed bumps, better signage, a lower speed limit. One tragedy is too many, and we have already endured that one tragedy. Thank you.
Anyone else? Would it be, I'm going to suggest either Mo, you have any comments to make, or Chief, if you have any comments to make. I don't want to put you on the spot, but you've heard some thoughts. I wanted to at least provide an opportunity if there's any comments from the two town departments that probably are most directly related here.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank Karen for her graciousness. This has been a very long and trying time for her, and obviously I've expressed my condolences over and over again. When we lose a community member, it affects everybody. It affects the family, friends, neighbors, neighborhoods. It affects our officers as well that have to, go with fire and go to these types of calls. So it's not lost on me how serious this is. So what we've tried to do over the last period of time since the accident is get a really good idea of what the problems are and where they're located. So since the end of May, we've performed 49 traffic enforcement posts with over 200 hours of dedicated enforcement to the area. We had those posts move up and down Causeway so we could determine if there was an area that was more prone to speeding or bad driving behaviors. I will tell you only one violation was observed during that entire time, with the average speed being between 29 and 32 miles an hour. Now, that is not to say that we didn't have one area that did have some outliers to it, and that is exactly what you were talking about with the straightaway coming off the bridge. A blind man can see there's tread marks all down the street, so we know we have some drag racing issues going on there. The issue has been it is a single car, it's random, it's hard for us to do some targeted enforcement. So we did two things to try and look at that. We put a covert data tracking sensor up in the area. So basically we watched cars when they didn't know we were watching them to try and limit our enforcement efforts. That still, I will be honest with you, didn't really provide us any data that allowed us to be more focused in our enforcement. So we went ahead and had the speed tracker put in on Causeway. They are extremely expensive. We have one. I am looking to purchase a second one. The order is out. That system doesn't just give you what your speed is, it actually tracks all the same things, whether what our volume of cars is, the speed, where we have outliers, where there are consistent patterns, and whether they're commercial vehicles or other vehicles. The next thing we did is we looked at our accident data. So we did a 5-year study of accidents on Causeway. There were only 10 accidents over a 5-year period, and only 4 that were deemed to need an actual police report by standards. I mean, they were under 1,000, no personal damage, those types of, no personal injury. The problem is when you have a road such as this that is narrow and windy, any speed, really, it's a 30-mile-an-hour road, I think appears fast. I'm going to tell you as the chief of police, I've seen cars come, I've sat in my car with radar, they're doing 30 miles an hour, and yes, I agree, it's fast. There's a study that has to be done by the state in order to change the speed limit. This might be one of the times that it's worth having the state do it, because I do think the majority of people are driving responsibly, so we might get that limit lowered to 25. There's a possibility it would come back at 30 again, but I don't think it's a bad idea in this case. We have put something online in response to this on our department webpage that talks about safety for pedestrians, joggers, bicyclists. We're trying to take a more forward campaign. I absolutely loved the signs in town. I do think that they give people a reminder, right? We're not the only ones on the road. But the fact remains that this is still a roadway, and its primary design was for the travel of vehicular transit. So it's not designed to be safe for a pedestrian. You take a risk, and you certainly have to be very cognizant if you walk on a road like that. And I say this as a mother of an 11-year-old who lives on a street that might very well be Causeway just in Hopkinton. And there's a balance there, but we are happy to work with the community and look to install one of the other lights for the opposite way going in, consistent, continue with our aggressive traffic enforcement and explore any other ideas that the town or the committee might have. But this is what we came up with over the last several months.
Thanks, Chief.
Just to echo what the chief is saying, anything that she would come up with, we would help facilitate for that area, whether it's signage or anything we can do out there. We have been sending our forces out for vegetation control at this time of year. Things are starting to die more. We went out there this morning to look at and assess different areas. There is minor vegetation right now, but we would still be monitoring over the course of the year to make sure that we try to keep the sides of the road down. With that being said, because it is a narrow road, it is difficult. We are constrained to that area. There's a lot of conservation restrictions that we have to comply with also. But if there's areas that we can somewhat widen to help in different areas, it's very difficult, especially around those winding curves. I would suggest maybe placards that would put on, in addition to signage to, especially at nighttime, to mark out where these curves are. That does help in some areas. But like I said, we will work with all of you as well to discuss different ways of trying to make it a little safer out there.
Comments?
Well, I do have a quick question, Chief. The device you were talking about, is that the device you said you can put up like on a pole and no one really acknowledges what it is, but you know it's now tracking the speed, the volume, and there's no call other than you know what the black box looks like? Are you using that?
It is, like I said, it's a covert system. It's
Okay.
designed for an operator not to see it, so that we get true driving behaviors, right? So our presence could be a behavior, the street signs, the flashing ones, speed signs can be a behavior changer. This allows us to get kind of the unadulterated, this is what people are really doing when no one's around, which is great feedback. And we put it out for a period of 2 weeks. That's how long the system battery will run. And we leave it there for the full 2 weeks. Then the officers can go in, change the battery out, and they download everything automatically. And it can give me everything from how many vehicles traveled outside of 30 miles an hour, what time of day, what day of week. So it just allows us, it's a fantastic tool for us to identify a problem and then target our response.
Okay. And then, Mo, question for you. I live on Metacomet, and ever since we put the sidewalks in, it hasn't been as much of an issue. But I mean, that's like, we call that the rookie runway, right? You leave the high school and they fly as fast as they can, and they hit the brakes just before they hit Pleasant Street. So we've always talked about in our neighborhood, trying to do the speed bumps, the temporary ones. What is I know there are challenges. That's what our neighborhood got. We got pushed back for the reasons that they're not easy to do in terms of the town. Could you give me a little insight on our guidelines for that?
So as far as speed humps, speed bumps, the chief and I talk about this all the time. I think it's, everybody feels it's a deterrent to slow speed down. I've talked to many communities, a lot of communities that have put them in, a lot of communities that now want to take them out. Even though you think it is a deterrent to slow speed down, there's a factor with this human behavior that you can't change. People like to speed in between these, that they'll slow down or they'll run them over. Speed humps and speed bumps are designed for, say it's a 30-mile-an-hour road. They have speed tables and speed humps that are designed for 30 miles an hour. If you go over at 30 miles an hour, you're going to be okay. If you go faster, that's when they're not designed for, so you will damage your car. You will know that you hit a speed bump. So they're different. Everyone has a different idea of what a speed hump or a speed bump will do. There are different types where there's speed tables, there's speed humps, and there's speed bumps. So speed tables have a longer transition, sort of like the Dukes of Hazzard. You go on one of those and you'll fly off of it if you're going really fast. Speed humps, you're going to damage your car. But a lot of the issue with speed humps and bumps, the straightaways can handle that. The design manuals for the state, there is a 250-foot pre-warning of a speed hump on either direction. So when you have all these turns and curves, you need that pre-warning. That's just the recommended for the state to have that to mark the speed humps. You would have the signs at the speed humps, but if you're coming around a curve, you would have to have the sight distance 250 feet to see a speed hump coming. So you wouldn't put a sign saying speed hump ahead and all of a sudden have a curve. That's just not the way it's designed to work for the community. So, when you talk about speed humps or speed bumps, it doesn't stop any roadway from having those. It's not recommended for high speed, but there is, once you put them in, the town is very difficult to take them out. And I do understand the reasoning that people want to put them in, but sometimes it makes things a little worse. But we can kind of discuss that and talk about that further.
Okay. No, I mean, I appreciate the Causeway residents coming in. You know, Karen, you know, we had a chance to meet, and I'm a runner. I just used the road just the other day to take a bike ride, and I living off of Metacomet. I mean, I look at Phillip Street. Phillip Street's another one where I look at it. It's really windy and it's narrow. So the woman that got up and talked about, you know, how do you change people's? I think the signs that got up, we share the road with everyone, bikers, walkers. The more we make people conscious of those things, we keep calling it out. You'd like to think we're starting to change people's habits, right? It's just it's not an easy solution. But I think as a community, if we continue to come together like this, and we think of ways, and you kind of nudge your friend if they're driving fast. And like Metacomet, I'm telling you, if you want to see what happens after school, it's a runway. I mean, it's crazy how people fly, and they know there's kids walking right there. Kids are on bikes. I don't get it, but the only thing that saved us is that we now at least have a sidewalk so the kids can step out of the way. Just know I certainly we hear you. At least I hear you for sure.
I'm Kara Deltuco. I live at 23 Causeway Street.
The
You
people
might
at
go to the
home
mic if no
can't
one's
hear
gonna
you
hear you.
unless you use the mic.
Yeah.
I just had a question. My name is Kara Del Tufo. I live at 23 Causeway Street. And I know there's been a lot of discussion about sort of the way in which the road is windy. But I think a lot of us on Causeway know that it's not that it's necessarily windy, it's that it's windy and then it has straightaways. And so to me, I've lived on Causeway since, 2013. And it's always seemed apparent, based on sort of other neighborhoods that I've traveled in, that speed bumps would be a very practical solution because the driver would come from a windy section, and instead of sort of speeding up, they would need to actually check their speed to go over the speed bump. I know there's neighborhoods in Westwood that have a lot of speed bumps through them that are really common cut-throughs around 109, and they seem to be pretty effective. So when we first moved to Causeway, my husband actually met with the former chief of police because we were so concerned. We have 3 children. We're terrified of them rolling off of the driveway because we're in that first stretch of Causeway. Right after you drive down the street, you turn, and that's where drivers really start to pick up speed. And they speed for quite a bit, then they slow down, they hit a couple winds, and then they hit that runway where the Stop River is. So we've been observing this for years, and we were always told that speed bumps were something that wouldn't work. And I'm surprised to still hear that, and I'd like to really better understand it and understand what it would take to get a speed bump. If all of the neighbors on Causeway Street agreed we were willing to live with this, is this something that the town would consider? Because I think a lot of us feel really strongly that this is a really practical, easy solution. It addresses people's behavior in the moment. It doesn't require them to think about whether they should be going slower. They have to go slow because there's a speed bump.
I think it's something we can discuss and look at the data and look at different case studies that will kind of explain certain things that we're talking about, and then kind of make a decision from that rather than just jumping into something. I do also want to talk about, I know line painting was brought up, to kind of mark out the road, and on a narrow road where it's very difficult to widen, very difficult to have any kind of sidewalk where you wouldn't have to take land all the way down the road. It's not something that we don't want to do. It's just something that's almost impossible for us to do with a road like that. But when you're talking about line painting and things, if you put a line down the middle of the road, it kind of marks where the road is, so you think it's safer. Sometimes when you do something like that on a narrow road, you're pushing, the natural instinct is to push people to either side of that line. They don't want to cross that line. So you're pushing them further to the edge. If you put them on the sides of the road, now you're pushing the vehicles closer together where you have more of a head-on kind of thing. So it's some of the things that we need to talk about is, what's the pros and cons of making these kind of safety improvements. So, but there are things that we can do out there, and like the low-hanging fruit, and then discuss future improvements.
Hi, I'm Jody DiNatale. I'm at 24 Causeway Street. I have lived here since 2007. I have spoken with the previous police chief several times related to this same issue. They fly between 19 and, where are you guys? 28. You hear them start to floor the car as they're coming around the bend, whether you're coming from 109 or whether you're coming from up, like from
Indian.
the top of the street. Okay, as soon as they get out of the wavy, curvy part, they are flying. It is so unsettling and very scary, whether you have children or you don't have children. There are plenty of times I've been walking on the street, we have to jump out of the way. And there's really not anywhere to jump to. So it's really terrifying. Could I find another place to walk? Yeah, I can, but it's my street and I want to walk on it and it's beautiful up there. So I really would appreciate it if we looked at those speed bumps very quickly. I mean, it's been since 2007 I've been talking about this. So we really need to have some action, especially after that terrible tragedy.
Before you leave the microphone, could you just help to orient me to 19 and 29 that you're talking about? Is that from Black Pine down to the next curve as you're coming off of 109?
Yep.
Okay.
No. So Black Pine and then up to 20, past 20, what are you, 20? To the next curve. Yeah. It's terrible. You know, I've,
Coming down the hill, so there's a little bit of acceleration coming down the hill.
I'm sorry, but you know, the people at home can't hear you unless you talk into the microphone. If you wouldn't mind, please. Thank you.
So when the drivers are coming down the hill, so there's a little bit of acceleration with them coming from 109, and it comes very flat. That's where most of our houses are set on both sides of the street. That's where they really pick up the speed, and there is quite a bit, almost like a quarter of a mile probably before the next bend. That's where the speed goes really, really high.
We're talking about going across the causeway.
Correct.
No.
no, before you even
Before
get to
you
the
even,
causeway.
yeah.
Yeah, this is before that first curve, and then there's that first curve, and then there are no more houses on the left.
Correct.
Yep,
And
There's
and
this
and it's up to
reservation,
the lady who said she was the last house,
yep, Megan.
And then it starts.
and then it's, yeah, then it's flat and straight.
And then it's the runway.
Yeah, okay.
And it doesn't matter which way they're traveling, whether they're traveling from 109 up or they're traveling down to 109.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable. I have even offered in the past to have officers sit in my driveway. I would offer to bring breakfast because it is unbelievable. I pull out of my driveway. As I'm pulling out, I look both ways. I look both ways again. No one is there. By the time I get out of my driveway, which is what, all of maybe 4 seconds, there is someone not only coming down, they are practically in my backseat. And this happens almost every morning. It's terrible. And it's shocking to me that we haven't had more accidents. So it's really an alarming thing.
So Chief, I'm trying to reconcile the comments you made about monitoring speeds and having almost all of them at the same time with those comments that sound like there's a particular point in time when the speeds are outrageous. And I don't know whether it's perceptions of speed or we're checking the wrong times.
So, you know, we do try and narrow it down. That's why the data tracking device is very good for us because it lets us narrow down our enforcement. Again, I think I led with this. It is a very narrow road, and 30 miles an hour on that road is fast. It feels fast. It's I don't drive 30 miles an hour when I'm driving it. So, you know, that's why I said I would support having DOT come out and doing a study and see if we can get them. For those of people who don't understand, DOT doesn't come out and look at your neighborhood. They don't come out and say this is a highly traveled road or, wow, this was built back when it was country farmland and now we have a greater residential area. They come out and simply do the strips across the street, monitor the speed, and then set the speed limit at 85% of the speed that was recorded.
One of the reasons I asked that is that the request for speed, so if the speed limit can't change without a study, if the cars are going 30 miles an hour, but it just feels fast to everybody, the speed bumps will be designed for a 30-mile-an-hour zone that we won't be able to use speed bumps to physically lower the speed limit that's not really the speed limit by having big bumps that, 25-mile-an-hour, 20-mile-an-hour speed bumps so that people have to go below the speed limit. So what I'm getting the sense of is that if people are going the speed limit, the speed bumps will make sure that everybody does go the speed limit, but you'll still have people going the speed limit. And you see what I'm getting at? Well, but then that's not a fast fix of just putting speed bumps in. That's going to be having that study done before we be able to do anything, I think.
Yes.
So again, would you mind just using the microphone? Thank you. And while you're walking there.
Unless Bill Massaro brought his memorial microphone. You don't have it, all right, okay.
What is the, where we put the black box? That was down by my house, like by the, coming off the straightaway.
I haven't been to your house for dinner yet, so
You
you're
can
gonna have
come
to tell
if you
me
pull
where your
people
house
over.
is.
67, so that.
67, yes,
one-
we did put it down there coming from the bridge.
Okay, so, and that's the only data point we have?
No, we did several, but that was the one where we obviously were addressing, yeah, an incident.
Okay.
Okay. And that tracking device does both directions, so we get, unlike the one that we posted up there, we'll only get one direction, that one will give us both.
And Chief, that data showed that people were not speeding. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Yeah. Wow.
All the data that we've received back from our officer, attended enforcement, our covert enforcement has indicated that speeds are within range with, I'm not gonna say we don't have a couple outliers. I mean,
Yeah.
my officers took daily notes of when they saw skid marks. We tried to target down a time. It actually looked like the skid marks, we identified a car, it was a Corvette, and that they were coming about 10 to 12 on weekends. So we did target our enforcement then. We haven't caught that person yet, but we did narrow that down, thankfully, because of some of this data that we were able to get, and more importantly, thanks to some of your calls. Because even though we couldn't get to the car at the time that you called us, it allows us, when I do my traffic study, to pull in what time you're calling, so that we can get in front of it. My only reservation with speed bumps is that they cannot create or should not create a greater hazard than what already exists. So I want you to picture a motorcycle going down a causeway and he pops it up to 40, 45 miles an hour and hits that speed bump. It is unlikely he's going to land in a straight line. And because the road is so narrow, we increase the risk that he goes off the roadway. Those are the things that we talk about when we say we have reservations. It's not to say we can't put a speed bump there. It's just something we should be aware of when we make that decision.
So, Chief, my understanding was that the Municipal Modernization Act changed that rule about needing to do a speed study, and that towns could put in a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit town-wide, I thought, Mark. Isn't that the case now?
The statute says one thing, what you said. However, Mass DOT weighed in, sent out an advisory to all municipalities that basically said, frankly, we don't care what the statute says, you still need to go through us.
And do the study.
Right.
Okay, all right.
We have one person on, that's online connected to us, Paul Hostovsky, who's got his hand up, so if we can promote him, hear his question or comment.
Oh, great, thank you. Just really quick, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yep.
Just real quick, I appreciate what everyone said, and I just wanted to add my 2 cents. I've lived on Causeway Street for over 20 years, and though I was shocked when I heard about Joel's death, I wasn't surprised. And I'm not going to repeat what everyone else has said. Just that it's been going on for decades. And of course, it's not unique to Causeway Street. Everybody drives too fast everywhere. We all know that. The question is, what can we do about it? And the signage doesn't really help. I mean, for the first couple of weeks after the accident, the signs went up. It seemed like people were driving more slowly and they were more respectful, including yours truly. You know, I mean, I thought about that every time I was driving. And so I was, and also on other streets and in other towns where the speed limit was 30. And I noticed, gee, I'm going over 30. I think, you know, again, I think the speed bumps are the way to go. I can't reconcile the difference between what we see, those of us who live here, as far as the speeds of drivers. And I can't reconcile that with the numbers that the police chief said are being recorded. I can't reconcile that either. Probably it's some of that, you know, 30 miles an hour is faster than we realize, but it's also that people are going really fast. And I don't walk on that street anymore. It's just not safe. We had 2 trick-or-treaters. I forgot to mention, I'm at 16 Causeway Street, so it's like the 4th house down on the left off of 109. We're all just heartbroken about what happened, and we got to do something. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Other comments, Pete?
I had some comments, yes. I think that we really want to get our safety committee going and looking into this sort of thing. I think that there are a number of streets in town that are particular problems. Pine Street is another one that comes to my mind. I worry about your street, Harding Street, because it's so narrow. And there's that horrible curve on Harding Street. And there are a lot of kids in your neighborhood, up on Marlin, Blacksmith, Evergreen, in that area. And as a town, I think we want to be able to create safe passageways for these families and kids to get from their neighborhoods to the downtown. I think the new rail trail helps because we can get the people from your neighborhood down to West Mill, but then we need to figure out how to get them safely to the downtown from there. But I would hope that we can resolve the issues that are stopping the safety committee from getting appointed and get that committee working on issues like this. So that's my first thought. I'm on Causeway. I'm a little bit of the problem, unfortunately, because one of the first things that I did as a volunteer in town was to study whether or not Causeway Street should be paved or not. And back when it was a dirt road, people probably drove slower. People didn't want it to remain a dirt road, so it became paved. But through that process, I learned a tremendous amount about painting lines on the sides. You can apparently narrow the perception of the width of the street by painting side lines, and that causes people to apparently slow down. So that there are ways of doing things that will slow the driver, and we can do speed bumps, we can do roundabouts, we can do all sorts of different physical things that would slow people down, and then the enforcement. But it sounds like there's not that much enforcement that's needed because people aren't speeding from your data, which really surprises me. So I guess that's about it in terms of comments. I think that we need to really look at this and figure out in the different streets in town where there is a speeding problem, how to get people to slow down.
Looks like we have another comment from Nancy Norris online. You can promote Nancy.
Gotta unmute. Okay. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. I am a 32-year resident at 11 Causeway Street. My house is right at the bottom of Black Pine. And so we're 0.2 of a mile from Route 109. And when my children were little, I contacted the police chief, and I also started a petition to have speed bumps put in the street way back then. So I sorry that I missed the beginning of the meeting. I had to be on another call. But about the speed study that was done, one, I just wanted to comment. I remember seeing the speed sign right at where the ship's house is at the beginning of the causeway. So one thought that I had, is that accurate? That's where it was, right? So about the inconsistent reports of the speeding, if someone is coming off the causeway towards the neighborhood, towards 109, they're slowing down because they have to go around a curve. If somebody is heading onto the causeway, they're also not having a chance to go quickly yet because they have just come off of a curve to get onto the causeway. So it's no surprise to me that the speeds would be reflected as slower at that spot. The spot that I wouldn't, speed bumps on the causeway are not a concern to me, but speed bumps like the ones in Westwood seem to me that we have an identical problem as those streets where they have effectively, in my opinion, put speed bumps in Westwood. And I don't see that I haven't heard that motorcyclists are being injured because of those speed bumps. I'm talking about the straightaway strip that is where Bob Naughton's house was. There's a memorial to Bob Naughton at right off of a curve when you're heading towards the causeway. And there's a straightaway there where Jody has spoke and Cara Del Tufo spoke. They're in that straightaway. That's a spot where 2 speed bumps would be so effective. And I don't see, painting lines is not effective. First of all, they wouldn't last. And for the very reasons that were discussed, putting them on the side are going to make people go towards the middle. Putting them in the middle, the road's not wide enough to have a line in the middle. Speed bumps are the only way, and that stretch right there, and I just wanted to give my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Nancy. Sure. Yep.
I'm Lauren Beadlesbecker. I do not live on Causeway, but Joel is a very dear friend of mine. I have a clarification question. Selectman Peterson, you mentioned the safety committee. I'm just very curious as to what that is and what goes into being on that committee. And that's one clarification question. The second clarification is, a lot of us are anxious to see more safety measures in place, and we understand that there might be fiduciary issues that cause a problem with that. Is there an opportunity to also privately fundraise for more safety measures in town, not just on Causeway, but on Pine Street and on Harding Street, and having maybe blinking lights that go from Nosh and Grok to the Unitarian Church, because I get terrified every time my children walk through there. I think there's about 5,000 different opportunities in town for different safety remediation, and I'm just wondering, A, more about this committee, and B, is there an opportunity for private fundraising to help support that? Thank you.
So the safety committee was started maybe 10, 15 years ago, Chris, and it's I think it had its genesis in trying to address sidewalks in town, maybe, and it primarily for years was Christian Donner and 4 town officials, the chief, the town administrator, the DPW, and it's been proposed to enlarge it to have more resident participation in the safety committee, and for some reason we've had people that are interested. Karen's interested, Gabby Harrison from Causeway Street is interested in serving, but for some reason it hasn't come forward and people haven't gotten appointed. So I don't know exactly why that is, but it's been looking at getting reconstituted and re-energized basically for about 6 months, and it just hasn't happened yet for some reason. But yep.
So let me jump in. First up, the committee exists and people are on the committee. We're looking, I think, to add 2 people to the committee, so the committee's still there. It still exists. Right after Joel's accident, we heard from the Souls of Medfield. We heard from people on Causeway Street. heard from a lot of people who wanted to be on that committee. So I have probably been the one that held up just simply going with the first two people that volunteered, because I wanted to make sure that that basically we'd heard from Causeway Street, and actually also that we'd heard from the Souls of Medfield who had reached out. So I think tonight is, yeah. So I think I want to get to that in my comments, but the short answer is, when we have committees like this, it's too easy for people like us to sit there and say, well, I guess we got the letters we want, let's just make decisions, when in fact it's worth, especially when people reach out to you and say they want to be involved, and then we kind of put in an artificial deadline. Well, you didn't get the letter, so I guess you missed the train. And so I didn't want that to happen in this case. So at least in the short term, Pete, I'm the one that stuck my nose in that to slow it down, but to make sure you had the right people.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yep.
So get your nose out of it, Gus.
Well, no, I'm going to keep it in it until we get it done right. But no more of those. Any other comments, Pete?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, so I have some questions and comments. First one's, I just want to understand, for those who live on Causeway Street, and this would apply if the people here were from Pine Street, probably Phillips Street. I'm talking about all of the streets that are narrow and scenic, and probably the reason you moved there was because it was a rustic street. I just want to understand your sentiment around the kinds of solutions you would want in terms, like, I think, Mo, you've talked about, well, there's a few places we could widen on the turns and do things like that, but as I think about what I think you want to see, it's not like, well, let's make it 2 solid lanes and then sidewalks on top of that. So in my own mind, I'm trying to understand the right judgment to use between maintaining the rustic nature of a street, which almost by nature is narrow, and responding to the safety concerns you have. I don't know if that's an easy question to answer, but is there a way that we should all be thinking about it that preserves the character of the street? You know, where are the greatest opportunities, I guess, to do things to a street that doesn't destroy the character of the street, or doesn't change the character of the street? That would be the most effective things to think about from a safety standpoint. Yeah.
I think it's tricky because it's like 3 miles long. And so there are different sections that have different needs. So the like sort of initial neighborhood that Jody and Jesse talked about with the speed bumps is one portion. And then the second neighborhood would be that straightaway across the river. I can't speak for the far end, because although as a runner, I can, I've had to jump out of the way on the far end too. So I think there are 3 different, I think signage and slowing and a lower speed limit as you come off the causeway into the residential would be, at least for us in that sort of narrow curve, would be the most beneficial.
Okay. So thanks for that, because my second comment was going to be, it sounds to me like there's actually 3 sections of Causeway Street. And trying to think of a solution, there's actually a 3-part solution. It's not, let's fix Causeway Street. It's actually thinking about each one of those sections separately. That's helpful. Okay, great. Sure, oh, please, yes.
I feel as though I may have thrown things off when I mentioned the fact that there are many other streets that have a 30-mile-per-hour limit, but they are 2-lane streets with lines down the middle and sidewalks on both sides. So I'm not suggesting that that's what we do to Causeway. What I was trying to point out is that 30 miles an hour is an appropriate speed limit for a street like those. It is not an appropriate speed limit for a very narrow street that barely fits 2 cars passing, that has no sidewalks. So, I'm not advocating that way.
Yeah, no, I understood you weren't. It was,
Yeah.
I just wanted to, but I just saw a conflict in terms of trying to make things safer, but not make things less narrow. and keep it rustic with woods right up to the edge of the street. So that's what I was trying to get.
That's the other point that I just wanted to make, is that I think that there are opportunities for widening the road at least by, say 2 or 3 feet, without destroying the nature that surrounds us. I mean, just broadening the road where it is possible is not going to detract from the beautiful place where we live. So I would advocate for that.
I will say, living on Harding Street, which does not have sidewalks, but is probably the wider road that you're talking about that has a 30-mile-an-hour zone. I walk to the barn next door to me twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and when you make a road wider, it will be faster. It's just the way, and I don't have a good answer, but I'm trying to get at least some idea, and I think that three different parts is one thing to keep in mind. I want to make an editorial comment about the way that much of this conversation has gone, and I'm not making this comment to belittle anything that people have said about drivers. But I will tell you, as both someone who walks and drives, there is a huge safety problem in this town with pedestrians and runners who think it's perfectly okay to run on the right-hand side of a road, sometimes 2 abreast, often with earbuds in. I can't stand doing that. I can't work out. I'll tell you a story. The week after Joel's accident, my wife was aware of what had gone on, and it happens to be, she works in Foxborough, and so she goes to work by going on West Mill and getting on Adams Street and cutting down and then getting onto Route 27 from there. This was a week after that accident. She was going down Adams Street, and because she was particularly mindful of that accident, she was driving probably more alertly than maybe she's a good driver anyway, but more alertly than she might have on an average day. There were 2 runners. They were downstream from CrossFit, but I don't know if that's where they came from, running with their back to traffic on the right-hand side of the road. And because they were there, she slowed down as she approached them. And just as she approached them, the 2 of them wheeled to the left, didn't check traffic, didn't do a thing, turned left right in front of our Explorer. Now, just because it happened to be a week after this happened, she was in tune with that. She was in control. Nothing happened. The runners kind of smiled and did this, and oh, sorry, and then they continued on their merry way. That happens all the time in this town. And the reason I bring it up is because the other thing that sometimes happens is bicyclists that drive the left-hand side of the road, which brings a bicyclist up toward a car that's an oncoming car too fast. So the reason I bring that up is that much of our discussion is making an assumption that it's reckless drivers, and many of or drivers going too fast. And yes, there are many of them. I can attest to that on nearly a daily basis. But I can also say on nearly a daily basis, I find people running on the right-hand side of the road, back to traffic, not off the road, on the road, with this blithe confidence that cars are going to go around them. The solution to this safety issue, and the people who are on this safety committee need to be people who can see both sides of that issue. And Karen, I'm going to call you out because your letter, no, quite the, well, not directed at you critically. No, I was, when you.
My husband was on the opposite side.
But as I
Someone else was driving a car.
Right.
And they're driving a motor vehicle that is more dangerous than anything.
That was
so
my.
They should have stopped or slowed down and waited to
Karen,
make sure that.
Karen, that's not, let me make the.
But I want to make that clear.
I'm not.
Just because you're a runner and you're the wrong side of the road doesn't mean the driver has absolutely no responsibility to be aware. Your wife was responsible. But my husband.
But Karen, can I make the point? I'm not, that's not where I was going.
Want to appoint you to this safety committee because I'm too one-sided?
No, actually, that was what I was worried about to start with until I read your letter. And your letter talked about both the need for cars and for safety. I was actually trying to say the exact opposite about you. So just so you know where I was coming from, I was about to say the exact opposite. You were someone who, despite what you've experienced in this year, despite that, called out in your letter the need to recognize the requirements for all users of the road to be safe. And my only point about that is not to have people fall into the trap that says all our solutions are slowing cars down. Because I'm seeing the opposite. I don't understand. When I was a kid, I was taught and drilled to not do that, and yet I see people in this town doing it all over the place. But my point about you is you saw that. You recognized it.
Yeah, and I feel that way. And when that was, I applied 3 months ago, and I haven't heard anything.
And that's because.
I didn't even get it, like, an acknowledgement. You talked about the safety committee,
Right.
and the 2 letters, and
Right.
no one even acknowledged that I, the widow of the man who was killed and had applied.
Well, yeah, we usually don't. We usually just take the letters and do that. So we recognize. Well, so let's jump to the safety committee just again to get your inputs. We heard from the Souls of Medfield actually in May, I think was when they first did it. We heard from you in the summer, and we heard from Causeway Street residents. I forget the date of the actual, which sort of sounded like it would overlap with you, but it was a different letter, and I think that might have been even July or August. So there's all of those. We have 2 slots. The thought was that there would be a representative from the Causeway Street neighborhood, and yours specifically have a letter in, and then more recently, I think we've gotten 2 more. And then the thought was that we probably owed a contact with the Souls of Medfield that seemed like it was a group of runners that operates across a broader spectrum of Medfield, that they might also be a good source. Now I'm seeing some overlap in some of this, so maybe it's too. Is this, you don't have to answer this yet. So Karen, you volunteered to be on this committee. And there are other people in the Causeway neighborhood who volunteered to be on the committee. Is there an easy way to know or to hear the voice of the neighborhood, of the Causeway residents, who they would most like to have on that committee, given there's like 3 people that would like to be on the committee?
Can I speak for a minute?
Please.
Right now, I return to work, I'm trying to raise 2 kids on my own.
Yep.
I have no family in this town, I have dear friends.
Right.
So I find someone else from Causeway takes on the responsibility, because I'm a little maxed out at the moment.
Right. Okay. Hey, Karen, just if that's, I'd kind of like to get the sense of the neighborhood. And just because someone's not on a committee doesn't mean they don't get to go to public meetings and they don't get to inject their thoughts along the way. Karen, thanks for everything, and having the courage to do what you're doing. I guess what I'm saying is it would help us to know if there's someone that the Causeway neighborhood would most like to be there, because you know your neighbors better than anybody.
Gus, the other solution that I would suggest is that we can always add another person to the committee. It doesn't have to have a set number of people.
Well, but
if we have people that are interested in working on this, let's put them to work.
I want to make sure that it's a safety committee for the roads. I want to make sure that all views are heard. So this is not a matter of piling on people who have all the same view just to add numbers to a committee. My view is you don't need to add official members of a committee to have people show up for committee meetings and have their voices heard. So that doesn't automatically go there. Independent of that, I don't know, well, I'm not sure if there's somebody who can speak for the Souls of Medfield now. Okay.
Thank you.
I can speak with the Souls of Medfield. We can we're happy to have Karen on the committee, or to send somebody on her behalf and on the behalf of all the runners and pedestrians and walkers in the town, and cyclists as well. Everybody to share the road. I know I really heard you when you said it is a roadway for vehicular traffic, but vehicles weigh tons and tons, humans weigh hundreds. Maybe a little bit more since COVID, but still not the same as a vehicle. And you know, we will send somebody from the Souls, or we will just come to every single meeting. I mean, so if there's room, we'd be happy to send someone.
I'm just trying to figure out how to get to an answer here. Would it be reasonable to ask the Causeway Street residents and the Souls of Medfield to put forward 2 people that they would like on this committee? Would that work?
If that we will defer
Okay.
to the Causeway residents.
Okay.
But we're happy to support that as well. And I believe that there's somebody.
Acceptable?
Absolutely,
Is that
yeah.
acceptable to you, Pete?
Yeah, as I say, I don't mind having 3 people instead of 2. I think that's a decent solution as well.
Yeah,
So you would like us to put forward 2 people from the Souls? Yeah,
that
we
would
can
be
absolutely do that.
that would be in the interest of making sure the voice is heard of both those groups, yes.
All right, you look a little scared that you're worried it might be me on the committee.
I'm not. Is there a reason I should be?
No,
It was more than anything, it was like, it seemed like, to me, it was 2 groups that had an interest, they have a shared interest,
We have
but
a
it
shared
seemed like they
interest,
were
yeah.
gonna be coming from somewhat different perspectives. So.
Well, we
this-
very much love Causeway, but we also, and you know, these people live on Causeway. We just have the privilege of running and
Right.
walking on Causeway. And we run on walk on all the streets in this town. And I'm surprised actually that I haven't been on Concerned Citizens, because I have been yelling at cars when they roll through the crosswalk, or when they're driving too fast. I'm surprised I haven't been on your radar too. But, you know, I think. But I do think that, oh my gosh, I am going to wake up worried about that later. But I do think we will, we have a perspective of all the streets and where there's opportunities. And we did a little heat map at Medfield Day, asking people to map where they run as a data point for you all to show kind of where people feel the most afraid. And it's everywhere. So we will send forth 2 people. Should I just reach out to Christine? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
There's only one concern I would have is about having the committee heavily weighted where there's focus on one particular area, is that we do vote on any decision to bring before the board. And I would just want to make sure that that vote is a true representation of the town safety committee. And just for clarification purposes, you know, when I talk about it's a roadway and it's designed for vehicular traffic, it's because we do hear concerns. I hear them all the time. I was riding my bike on a road, I was walking my dog, I went for a jog. You have to remember that as a pedestrian, anytime you step into a roadway, you are assuming the risk. The road was not designed for pedestrian travel. And I think it's just to say we all have to be a little more cautious and be cognizant of the fact I'm stepping into a roadway as a pedestrian. Right? If a car had come up on a sidewalk, we'd go, well, clearly the car is wrong. As a pedestrian, we do assume some risk in that. There are roads, I will tell you, I wouldn't run down, and not so much anymore, but I used to be an avid runner and loved to go on scenic roads. I probably wouldn't at 52. I think, much like Karen said, you know, we rethink things as we get older and our circumstances change. So just a clarification, that would be my only kind of word of caution.
I'd make the observation, the chief is the chair of that committee. I've had conversations with the chief about roads and learned things about roads and the insights from someone who actually patrols roads, and I would say as well with Mo, around the practical dimensions of what you can and can't do with roads. And that's been my concern. This has to be a complete conversation around how to do things.
Say one more thing.
Yeah.
I just want you to know that, you know, we both want to try to make as much safety improvements as we can through the whole town, Causeway Street and all the rest of the town. Just touching one more time on speed humps and bumps. It's not that the town's totally against putting those in, but I think we need a serious conversation about the pros and cons and discuss if that's the best solution for that area, that's all, okay? So we do want to make as many safety improvements as we can. We want to make sure we try to make the right decisions, that's all. Thanks.
Are there any other comments on this? I just want to personally apologize to Karen. It was not my intention to have what I said have the impact that it had. Okay. All right. Next, we have the continued discussion of the Deerfield Drive road concerns. So this is switching over to the Deerfield Drive folks. I think, Mo, we would start with you with your report on the assessment of the roads.
I have a professional relationship that causes me
Yep.
to recuse
Okay,
myself.
right, okay.
So from the last meeting for Deerfield Drive, we discussed about the, myself, my staff, we went out to Deerfield to do an assessment, to look at the improvements that we felt were needed to continue winter operations, snow plowing, things like that. I did have a report that I believe we have extra copies up here if you want to. Do you have extra copies?
You brought them, right?
I think I
Yeah, I got it.
Yes, I have it.
So assessing the roadway, we did find a large sinkhole next to a drainage manhole that would need to be excavated, compacted, and filled and paved afterwards. We found 5 manholes within the subdivision that had an extra lip. When the asphalt sinks down, the lips of the manholes raise up, and that would catch the plow blades for sure. 5 of those manholes would need to be infrared and the pavement feathered around, as well as 3 catch basins in the gutters that would have the same issues. We also found an area where the top layer of asphalt was completely deteriorated that would need to be ground down and repaved for the surface. And also a lot of the curbing in the area is missing, loose, that would have to be removed. And then snow stakes, painted snow stakes would have to be placed on those edges of the berm that's exposed so that our plow drivers would know where the edge of the road was. So those are the, the immediate kind of repairs that would be needed for that subdivision.
So that's the assessment. I think did you all get a copy of? Okay, you all have.
So what does that mean? Okay, so there's the assessment. Is the town gonna do it?
Well, the town cannot expend public funds on a private road.
So I'm Neil Isaacson, 2015 Deerfield Drive. The town has expended funds for that road for 30 years. So I'd like to understand why today it can't do it anymore.
When you say the town's expended funds for the road, what to do what?
To repair it, to clean it, to clean the drains, to clean the curbs, to patch holes. For 30 years you've done it.
So we've talked about cleaning, I think, already.
If you've patched holes, you've cleaned, you've repaired the curbs, there's well, we'll just call it patching for the time being. You've swept it, you've cleaned the drains.
So it appeared, well, I'm not the legal guy here, but I think the 2 things that we have been doing that we should have been doing are plowing at our discretion, but nonetheless doing it, and cleaning. Anything else is stuff we should not have done if we ever have?
You have.
Well, we shouldn't have.
But you have.
It's against the law.
So you have. It's against the law? Yes. It's against the law? Well, so the town has broken the law.
Mark?
The fact that there may have been expenditures that were not legally appropriate in the past doesn't justify continuing them into the future.
I would like to know, I lived there for 30 years. I would like to see a list of all of the work the DPW has done in 30 years for every street in the town. And I'd like to see every street in the town to see that they're all public or private.
I'm not sure if that list exists.
Why not?
I don't.
The town is very well run. We must have all this information.
Well, if we have it, you can see it, but I doubt we have it.
Well, you also don't have any information to say that the road was
never accepted. I mean, look, we can go
No,
back
no,
and forth.
yeah, we already did that one, Mr. Isaacson. You have to show legally that the road was accepted.
Right.
And if we don't have that, it was not accepted. It was not accepted. If we're gonna go back to a debate over whether it's a private road or
Well, that's
not.
not what we're going back to debate.
Okay.
That's not what we're going to debate.
Okay.
Same way that you don't have information on what roads you've repaired, you don't have the information on whether the road was accepted or not.
Yes, we do.
But that doesn't make sense. That's, the idea that we don't have a particular cut on how we've spent money is not the same as whether or not there are legal documents that document an action. You could go back into our warrant reports for the last 30 years and show me the article of acceptance of the road, if you can't find it.
I don't have it. I don't see
They're in
it.
the library.
Right. So when the developer built that street,
Mhm.
it was either public or private, or I think what you said last time was it was intended to be private, or not.
Well, I think what we said last time is it had not yet been accepted as a public way.
Right. At least what the records show. But we don't know whether someone dropped the ball.
It's not that the town dropped the ball. When a developer does it, it's their responsibility to follow through. If the developer did not follow through and you guys made the private transaction, the question would be back to the real estate attorneys that help with the closing, whether it's a bank attorney or private attorney or your real estate agent. But I appreciate your frustration, but if it wasn't done, it doesn't come back on the town to chase these developers to close out their responsibility. They were thrilled to get a private road because they could do things unique to it that somebody who knows they want to bring it and make it public has to, I know Mo, you were talking last week, there are regulations for how the road is made, the quality of the construction, et cetera. And I think too, and certainly help me with this, the uniqueness of your development is it went over a long period of time. So it's not like when you look at some of the developments, let's say Bob Relly's done around town, he may do 4 or 5 homes, boom, right then and there. They're all done at once, and then the realtors get in and they start selling the homes. If I'm not mistaken, yours it was like the road was built, and then one contractor sold a home here, another contractor sold a home here, another. So it was very individualized, which does make this challenging because it's not like it was a large development that you guys knew what you were getting into, but it's not the town's responsibility to do that homework. It's, if you bought into something and you're finding out after the fact, shoot, the data points aren't adding up to what I anticipated, it gets us where we are today. It's an uncomfortable situation, but it doesn't make it the town's responsibility to just say, okay, you know what, we'll accept it as public tomorrow, when it should have been filed, 34 years ago, 30 years ago?
Right. That's right. Okay. So 30 years ago, it was up to the standards.
I would question if it was or if it wasn't.
It probably wasn't.
How can you sit here today and say that it wasn't?
Because it hasn't been accepted. Yeah, well, I mean, how would I know? It wasn't accepted.
Exactly, that's my point.
Well, the default is the issue is, if it was up to standard to be accepted as a public way, it should have been submitted as a public way, and it would be in the records, it's a public way. It's not.
Okay, so how did the houses all get their permits for occupancy?
They don't.
If they weren't on a road that was accepted?
They don't have to be on an accepted way, it just has to be accessible.
Accessible, okay, so it was accessible for 28 years, or 30, actually, and then it stopped being accessible apparently around COVID? No. Because that's when you stopped doing any work on the street.
Oh, we should.
COVID started. That's exactly what happened, Gus.
Well, I can believe you, but it doesn't matter.
Tim, come up here, please, just because we can hear you, but it's frustrating for people at home, and we're going to get messages that there's a dialogue going.
The sidewalk, excuse me, not the sidewalks, the curves where you talked about pieces that are missing were taken out by the town. They get broken through plowing, happens on a lot of streets, just a natural part of that process.
As I discussed last week, that if we damage something during plowing operations, that we would go and repair that.
Okay.
Okay? Doesn't mean that we maintain the road.
Didn't say you maintained
Right.
the road,
No,
but
no.
I am saying that you did repair the curbs.
Yes.
That were broken, right?
Correct.
And you did all the other services that were necessary to
All the
keep
other
the
patching.
road.
There's other
You
patching
came up
done.
and patched the road, you fixed spots on it in the past.
And since I've been here for 6.5 years, I don't have any record of us maintaining that roadway.
Okay, so.
If they did that before,
You
I
did,
don't.
you
I
did.
don't. I don't.
The residents
again,
know you did.
Okay, but we go in there and sweep because we are mandated by the state for.
I'm not just talking sweeping.
No, no, I'm just talking. I'm just giving you an idea of what we do go in there for. Okay, As far as I know, is all we do is go in to plow, and if we do damage, we would repair what we damage. And stormwater management forces us to sweep the road to make sure that we limit how much debris that goes into our waterways through the catch basins.
Yep.
So since I've been here for 6.5 years, that's all that have accomplished, okay? We don't go in there to patch, and if that happened in the past, I'm not aware of that. But if my predecessors had done that, I don't know.
They did.
Yeah,
They did.
Again,
Yeah,
I'm
so
not.
if they did and they weren't supposed to, I'm listening to this, and I'm like, okay, if they did and they weren't supposed to, and now we're realizing we're working on a private way that we shouldn't be, and it doesn't change it from being a private way, help me help you.
Okay, help us help ourselves. We're trying to get the road taken over by the town, including the sewer system, which we've been in front of you before about.
Yep.
We're now facing the winter where we've got a hole in the road, needs to be fixed, obviously, before you can plow over that, right, at a minimum. And winter's coming. And we're here again with you talking about the same thing. We've talked to you previously about the sewer system. We volunteered to contribute money. We volunteered to try to bring it up to spec, as I think, Mo, you've been involved with Bob Reckner on that, right?
Just to be clear, you've talked to the Water and Sewer Board. I don't think you've been before.
We've been in front of you before, Gus.
About the sewer system?
Yeah, we have. It was down at the new town garage. Had a meeting there one day. Yeah, probably 4 years ago, maybe longer. The fact is, we have a problem with a system that we shouldn't be running. We have a septic system that we shouldn't privately be running. Bob Reckner, God love the guy, has done a fabulous job of keeping it going, but we're now facing a problem where Bob wants to retire. Can't blame the guy. But now we have a system that nobody's gonna be overlooking, and it doesn't change the fact that we've offered and would be willing to put up funds to help make it happen, to have the town take over the sewerage.
And the road.
And the road. And we're willing to step up and look at what expenses are involved to make it right.
Well, yeah.
Okay, we're not saying that the town should be paying for everything.
Right.
We recognize that. All right?
Okay.
We could go on forever about whether it's public, private. We recognize we have some responsibility. But we need to get moving on this. And at a minimum, we need to do whatever repairs are necessary for the winter.
So,
I think the town should do it.
so well,
There's
our problem. There's our
Let's see
problem.
if we can figure out what needs to be done to make sure we can get through the winter.
We know it needs to be done. It's right here.
Well,
It's right here. This is what
all
needs
of
to be done.
that, Mo, does all of that need to be done for the winter?
That needs to be done for the winter in our estimation, for us to be in there to plow safely, yes.
Okay, so
So that's what needs to be done.
And this is basically what you're saying is, Deerfield Drive residents, go fix your road. That's in essence what the town is saying.
To go patch the road, you're asking for patches, and then it's to come back and say, how do we get it ready to be at acceptable level?
It's unbelievable, okay? When anybody buys a house, when you bought your house, did you check and see whether the road was public or private?
I did. My younger brother's a real estate attorney. He literally sat me down and said, you live in a secondary aquifer, you live in the RU, I know you want to do an addition, this is your limited coverage, this is what, so I mean, as a real estate attorney, he literally went down it and he knew what as a resident I should be concerned with.
So basically, every one of the residents on Deerfield Drive is in error because we all bought our homes and we all just stuck our head in the sand and we all looked the other way. None of us hired an attorney. Every single attorney we hired just dropped the ball.
Mr. Isaacson, it's a private transaction you did, whether you made a mistake, whether you did a diligent job. The issue is you would like the town to take responsibility for whatever you did or didn't do. It didn't turn out to be what you want it to be, and we're just saying, it's not.
That's not what we're asking. That's not what we're asking.
Okay, what are you asking?
We're asking to have the town take over the road, the sewer system, and figure out what it's gonna cost to have that done, in order to meet the specs that are required, okay?
Yeah, so you got the requirements for the road, you know what you're gonna need to do there to get it, okay?
That's right.
Okay.
And we'd like to find out the same for the sewer.
Yeah.
And get the thing packaged up and see if we can bring it to town. Vote, I guess, is what it would have to go through, right, the town meeting.
But, if you do that, I think it's in the interest of the town to take the sewer, you know, if the sewer system were up and is ready to be transferred over, it's in the interest of the town to take over the sewer system. You got this hodgepodge, and it's in the interest of the town to take the road over.
Yep.
It's just that it's got to be brought up to the point where it can be accepted. So that, I don't think, what you just said, we're not in disagreement with.
Right.
Okay.
We're also not looking for ways to make your life miserable getting there. It's just that.
We just want to make sure
Right.
that, assuming we get the residents involved
Mhm.
together on this, and
Yep.
they're willing to step up and make those repairs
Mhm.
of all the things associated with this, that we can have some assurance that the town will take the road over.
The town meeting vote.
It's a town.
It's a town meeting vote, so.
But in order, we would be able to at least bring it to that?
Yeah,
put it on the
absolutely.
warrant.
I think if you do everything and Mo says it's all in good shape, I'll speak for myself. You not only can get it to town meeting, but I'll recommend it be passed.
Right.
Okay.
I can't commit the town, but I can commit to what I would
That's
do.
fair.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just understanding that that assessment is just to get it to the bare minimum for the snow and ice.
Yep.
It's not to get it towards acceptance. I just
Yeah.
want to make that clear.
I'd love to see what you think it needs to have
It
for
would-
acceptance.
It would
Mo.
need to go through planning and zoning with their engineers as well. We would do our assessment, but it would also be reviewed by the planning and zoning board as well.
Okay, so is that something that you can go ahead and do, or how would we approach that?
There's a process for acceptance. It would start with the planning and zoning board, I believe. It would have to be
Not
going
the
with
the
engineers.
zoning board's not involved in this planning.
Just planning?
Just planning, okay.
Yeah.
Planning, okay.
Reach out to Sarah.
Mo, from a seasonal standpoint, is there, like, could they start that now because it's the winter time and you're not doing the engineering assessments until the spring?
Right.
So you could actually start doing that now, and then you'd be able to do the engineering assessments that are, you could get through the early stages of that. Okay, so you could start any time, but you probably wind up doing engineering assessments, I would guess, in this, after the winter, I guess
I
what I'm
think
saying.
Mark had discussed it last week about going through the acceptance plan, getting an engineering on board, and then,
That plan has to be prepared. That wasn't done either.
Right.
Again, this
Yeah.
developer, the original developer, I believe, just basically put the infrastructure in and flipped all the lots and took off.
That may be, but now they're sitting with where they're sitting, so they can get in it.
We need to we would need to have an engineered plan that shows the layout of the Deerfield Drive.
That, fine. And that's partly gonna be making clear what the layout is, and then making clear what the standards for construction need to be.
No,
Is that-
there's
it's a
two separate
thing,
distinct
thing.
things.
Okay.
And the whole issue of the sewer system and how that's gonna be addressed, I told you last week, the estimate from 2018, was it?
yes.
Was $404,000 at that time, just to replace the plants.
That's fine. They're just trying to, they're just asking the question, how do we do it? And,
So the process would be that the planning board would put it forward with a recommendation to accept the road. You, the Board of Selectmen, then have to have a public hearing with a layout plan, layout acceptance plan, whatever you want to call it. You have the public hearing and accept, and then vote in order of layout. Then that goes to town meeting, the town meeting accepts it, it then comes back to the Board of Selectmen to acquire title to the property, however that's gonna happen.
at what point does the road have to meet the standards for acceptance to the town? At the point the layout plan is
That's not a
accepted, or
legal-
after
That's
that?
kind of a political, practical thing over to the side.
After the layout plan is approved, though, is accepted?
Whenever you want to do it. The only thing which has been said before is that the town cannot go in and expend town funds until it owns the road. So what,
I'm just trying to help
Right.
in your thinking about it. I'm hearing a layout plan, which I think is sort of a survey kind of thing that specifies.
there should be, and I don't even know, I don't know if you look for them, but they actually put in granite bounds
Good.
at any place where the road turns or curves,
Mhm.
the start of a curve or an intersection.
Right.
And that's where a surveyor or an engineer starts. Now, if those didn't get put in, and if they didn't, it wouldn't be the first time that didn't happen either, because they're expensive. then that just increases
But
the
that's, what I'm
expense
getting at
now.
is that's a survey activity. That's a separate issue from building a road which meets the acceptable standards for the
So
town.
basically, at the same time that the plan can be done, the peer review engineers from the planning board can be looking at the subdivision, seeing what the improvements needed to get it to the standards that the town expects. And we would go out as well, any department that is involved with, looking at the roadways and looking at the subdivision as a whole.
We try running at this a different way. If the layout plan lays out with survey accuracy where the road is, in most circumstances, or in normal circumstances, would that layout plan be accepted first, and then the road be constructed after? It seems like that might be the case, because you'd want to be sure that the layout plan has been accepted before you'd build the road.
It would need to be done before town
Well, it's a question of who the town expects to do it. Once you accept the road, it's now the town's responsibility to maintain and repair the road.
Is accepting the road, what's the difference between accepting the layout plan and accepting the road?
Well, voting the layout is just a step in the process.
Right.
The final acceptance, the action of the Board of Selectmen after it comes back from town meeting, that's what triggers.
Let me go slowly through this. So it's going to cost something to have a road surveyed to create a layout plan.
Right.
I'm guessing that then that layout plan is submitted to the town for acceptance.
Correct.
There's also a road that has to be constructed that needs to be accepted by the town. I'm guessing, under normal circumstances at least, that road would be constructed after the layout plan had been accepted
No.
because.
No, it's the other way
So
around.
usually they would build the road first. that makes
Okay.
sense, right? Then the road would be completed, and I know that's
Okay.
not how
Okay.
this went.
Okay.
The road would be completed.
Okay.
The developer would come to the Board of Selectmen and ask for the road
The
layout.
developer would go to the planning board and say, I've done the road, it's all up to spec. They would send their consultant, the planning board would send their consultant out to confirm, and then if that were the case, the planning board would then say yes, and send a letter of recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. This road is ready for acceptance, it's in the condition to be accepted,
Okay.
and we recommend acceptance.
Then when would the layout plan be completed?
Historically, that would have been done as part of that process with the planning board.
Okay.
We're going back and doing something
Okay,
that wasn't
so let me
done
try that, I'm going to take another run at it. These folks are in the position that they're in. They've had a road that's a private road for 30 years. They would like to not have it be their road for the infinite future. So they would like to find the most straightforward, logical way to go about getting a road to a state that that the road can be accepted by the town, and with a layout plan that is acceptable to the town. What's the smartest way for them to do
Smartest way, I
that?
believe, is to have the roadway, first have the parent review engineers go out there to assess the development, to
Okay.
see what improvements are needed with all the other departments giving their recommendations.
Okay.
Once that is done, there'll be that would go to the development to say, these are the things that need to be accomplished.
Okay.
Once the roadway is repaired or made those improvements, they can build that as-built, if you will, and layout plan to whatever's there now.
Okay.
And that'll be the final, and then
Okay.
it would go to acceptance from there.
Is there anything they need to be worried about, pitfalls, that says if, let's say you build the road, it's built to an acceptable standard for the town, are there any pitfalls they have to worry about in terms of how that layout plan, that you can foresee at least? Is there anything they gotta watch out for that in putting together the layout plan to be accepted in conjunction with the acceptance of the road? Is there anything that gets screwed up that they need to know about or need to avoid? I don't think so.
Well, I mean, if you're throwing the sewer into that, you're gonna be concerned about where the sewer is, and
That's
That's
a
the
fair
sewer
point,
line
but you're
is
trying to
also-
solve both of those.
That's
Okay.
part of the as-built. It's the development as-built. So basically.
The other thing
all
is, and this isn't the plan, but Mo's talking about an area where the road is apparently, there's a subsidence. It's sunk. So as I had alluded to, I think last week, you really don't know what went on here with the construction and the compression and all that. Well, no, but you said any surprises. Those are the kinds of things that could end up coming along after you've agreed that this is the work that's required. And then all of a sudden, when they actually go in and start to do it, it becomes a bigger problem than they thought it was.
But I think that, they usually take cores
Yeah.
in the roadway to see what the sub-base is, what the compaction level is, things like that. So that would be within the peer review and our investigation as well.
Next question, if they're solving both the road and the sewer issue, sequence-wise, does the sewer solution need to get figured out first before the road solution can be implemented?
If they're gonna be accepted together, it would have to be done first with the Water and Sewer Board.
Okay. Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
What I can tell you is I don't feel, I'm not happy, I feel bad that you're in the spot you're in. We're holding a hard line between what your responsibilities are and what the town will accept, and in fact, this is a broader issue, because you're not the only ones who
That's
are
right.
putting
We're not the
money
only
in.
ones with this. That's right.
But outside of that, if there's things we can do to help guide you through a process, or if there's questions you have about once we do all this work, do we have to worry about whether you guys are gonna take the responsibility? I think,
Right. That would
certainly
be our
speaking
number
for
one
myself,
concern,
we
right?
absolutely have no good reason that I've heard from anybody why we wouldn't take a properly constructed, properly laid out road over, and even a private sewer system properly updated and set up to be integrated. So we're in the business of doing that stuff, so we would want to.
I don't know, I don't recall any situation where the town voted
Yeah, town
down.
meeting
Right,
hasn't
I
voted
wouldn't
down any
expect-
roads.
right.
We would need everybody to come to town meeting.
Right.
So that with the dog leash, we might get a crowd.
Right.
Well, I don't think that this is a May 2023
Right.
town meeting.
Right.
Just, I just,
Right.
we've been talking since our last meeting that obviously we all want to get you to that point, but I don't want anybody to think that we can do that by May. We're good. We're not that good.
Yeah.
So I would think, we should shoot for May 2024.
Okay.
But
as our initial target.
what you have in your hand right now is what has to get done in order for the town to be plowing your roads this winter.
Yep.
So that's, again, I feel bad that showed up as late as November, but,
Well, it's nice that it's November, isn't it?
right,
Yeah.
right, it's-
Thank you.
okay,
Thank
all right.
One thing to know is our street has registered and unregistered land. So with the registered land, it's definitely, there's more information. But I didn't know, I found, when I went into the Registry of Deeds, going back to when the road was started, I found information as to the developer that put the road in, correspondence that he had with Mr. Sylvia and the town as to having the road done a certain way, and that it was done that way. And I found different, layouts of the road, the way it actually is. And I don't know if any of that is needed from you, or any of these documents that I came across. I also talked with Mr. Ratner tonight, and he has the as-built for the sewer. For the pumping station, he has the as-built, but he says nobody's come to look at it. He tried to get it on the water and sewer agenda for the 28th for them to talk about it, and they said that they didn't have time, and nobody's come out to look at it in quite a long time, the pumping station, because they'd have to contact him to be able to get in. So I don't know if there's any information that you need me to go looking at the Registry of Deeds for, and I can do, or to help this along?
Mark is nodding no. I mean, if.
Don't mark.
If there's.
Mark,
if
nod
there's
yes.
if there's I mean, Mo, in many ways, I don't know how to answer your question for sure. Generally speaking, if you
Yeah,
have
background.
information, it's usually good, but.
So the background information may be helpful as a starting point or background for whatever surveying or engineering firm was gonna prepare the plans. The fact that it's land courted and just regular registry land really doesn't add or detract from this process. ultimately, when we go to record, we'd have to put documents on both sides, but that's not a big deal, so.
So I don't know how to answer your question exactly, but if,
Why?
you know, it's,
Let me, I take that back. We'd have to look at the plans in terms of the land court side, which is like a hybrid for clearing, protecting titles. They have very strict standards. The registry, much looser. So when you have a subdivision with land courted land, historically, they require the road to be on a separate lot, its own parcel.
mhm.
The registry side doesn't necessarily require that. That being said, the plans for road layout go on the registry side, they don't go on the land court side. So so what you can do, what you can and can't do between the registry and the land court side gets very, very confusing, but we actually have one situation here in town where we had to do a compromise because the road was not laid out as a separate, it was land courted, the road wasn't laid out as a separate parcel, and therefore, instead of taking ownership, we took a right-of-way, and all the abutters had to sign off. So,
So if anything that she found around road layout, by any chance had any indication that any survey work had already been
Right.
done, even though it hadn't all been accepted, that could potentially be useful information
Yes.
to show that work has already been done.
or
I went back-
or how to proceed.
Yeah.
I went back to when they first started talking about putting in the road.
Yeah.
When they first started going for acceptance, before they did the extension, got the approval for the extension on the
Okay.
end of the cul-de-sac.
Okay. So, the reason I don't know how to answer your question is if you found things that indicated the town and the developer agreed to something, whether that was just a conversation they agreed to, it doesn't mean anything, or whether it was actual evidence of legal
It's actual
action.
documents that were, covenants, different things signed, and same with the sewer. I found all the towns, the covenants and everything for the sewer.
So maybe those would be good things to have, or
I
depending
can
on what
print
they
them
are.
out. I
Okay.
spent an entire day at the registry going through stuff.
Okay.
My other question would be, when they do come up to take a look at our road, is it possible to have like a couple people from the neighborhood be allowed to be there too, to hear what's being said? And if we have a question, to, get an answer right then?
I don't know if they'll give an answer right then, but there's no harm in having anybody there.
So we'd be notified that, they're coming, or?
I mean, if we.
I think that'll be part of the process.
Okay.
When we go to the planning board to talk to them about going over the road, so that will trigger that process then.
Okay, because I know you guys all talk road talk.
Yep.
So we don't. So if there's a question that we have, it might be a simple question to you people, but it will clear something up for us.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
So we have three questions. Fortunately.
I was just coming up to ask the questions
Okay,
for my neighbor.
go ahead.
No, I'd rather them ask you. They were just
Okay.
saying, I put questions in.
Oh, that's-
Apparently, the town owns some land on our street. So did you know it was private when you bought that land?
No, it has been so the question from Willem Lewis is, it's been established that a part of the road is owned by the town. Does any town own parts of any private ways? If it is considered a private way and is assumed to be a homeowners association, why hasn't the town paid into anything but has worked on the road, I think probably means over decades?
It was a parking area and a trail, as I understand it. It's not a buildable lot.
So there's no sewage on it.
It was donated to the town. In
Right.
order for them to get the extension at the
Okay.
end of the street,
Yep.
Mr. Sylvia wanted them to donate land.
Yep.
So they donated this little spot that was supposed to be a parking area for the trails,
Yep.
which the trail thing is all expired, as far as I can find, it expired in like 2016. And then there's another 9 acres on Deerfield
Yeah.
behind my house
Yeah.
that was donated to the town to get them to give the okay for the extension on the street.
Okay, yeah, I get that. So I think the starting phrase in this question was, it has been established that a part of the road is owned by the town, I think is incorrect. It's the land,
By the town, but it was donated to them.
But not the road, not the road, right. Right, yeah, yeah, right. No, I'm just taking issue with, it has not been established that the town owns the road, is all my only point. Chris Potts had a link to the July 17th, 2018 Water and Sewer Board minutes where Castle Hill was discussed. So my earlier point, but I didn't think it came before us, maybe it came before the Water and Sewer Board. I just don't recall having a discussion around sewer here at a Board of Selectmen meeting, that's all. And then, from someone named Jen, so is the town not going to plow our street this winter? So the issue is the deficiencies that Mo uncovered need to be addressed before the town will do it, because the town will wreck either their plows or the road with the current state of the road. Many of the issues Mo reported have been issues for years, for example, broken curbs, but you've plowed. And many of the issues are from the plowing, which Mo said would be something the town would fix, question mark. So broken curbs, my guess, would be, that's not your concern, it's the structures that you're concerned with.
The structures and the curbing, there's loose curbing there now.
Yep.
But a lot of it's not, it's deterioration from the road as well. It's
Yeah.
not just from the plows
Okay.
plowing that. So it's a combination of deterioration, and if the plows had damaged something, they would go back and fix it.
Okay.
But they wouldn't replace the whole curb because
Right.
that's all deteriorating. It's not, doesn't make sense for us to go in there
Okay.
and do that.
Okay. So Jen, I think that's a partial answer, that basically the broken curbing is not clearly caused by plows, although it could have been, but we're not just kind of automatically keeping the curbs up. Okay.
So can I make a statement real quick? Just
Sure,
because
please do.
I sense the sensitivity of what was discussed last week about, making, having where the holes are in the ground, especially around the water, the metal cover. Is there a time sensitivity that the neighborhood needs to come forth to get that addressed, knowing that, I know, like, when my neighbors built a home across the street from me on Metacomet, there were cutoffs for certain things that the state, after a certain point, doesn't let you start messing with streets, doing certain things, and knowing asphalt sites will start to shut down.
Since this is not a public, considered a public road.
Okay.
We don't have any jurisdiction on shutting that road down. So in the public ways, we shut down in November 15th. But the plant's still open.
Okay.
They'll still be open. If it's not hot mix, they'll do winter mix, which is another type of mix, which would be late in December. So they still have time to get those minor repairs done.
Okay.
So the cutoff comes from the thermometer more than the
Right.
state.
But I just
Yeah,
don't
if we
want-
went into a real serious cold snap,
Right,
that would.
right, okay. Did you?
I have a question.
Mhm.
If there, the parts of our street that were donated to the town, does the town then share some of the costs of the repairs if some of the street too?
So you mean the land that was donated, not the parts of the street? I think we've established no parts of the
Oh, no,
street.
so there's no part of the street
But the
that-
land, it's the land that was donated, yeah.
That goes up to the street? But not the street, it's not.
So, short answer, I don't know the legal answer. I know the town is not part of the homeowners association, but the homeowners association has to do with the sewer. Right, right.
And then the second question is, what if we do the assessment for the sewer and the street later down the road,
Mhm.
and it costs just too much for the residents to even, come up with the funds? Like, then what are we're just stuck and that's it?
You have a problem with private property that you're not in a position to protect. I mean, I guess I'd cross that bridge when I came to it. I don't think the answer is it's too much for us, so let the taxpayers pick it up isn't gonna probably fly.
Taxpayers too, right? I mean,
Yeah, well,
pay the
but,
same
but,
amount of
but,
taxes and we don't get-
well, but this is, again, we're talking about private property, so.
There was a question asked last week about the fact that since it's a private road, should
Mhm.
our taxes be abated to some extent?
No.
No.
No?
It's
Nope.
taken into account by the assessors.
It's taken in, so the assessor knows it's a private road and we're assessed less than because it's private?
No. You're assessed the same as everybody else. House assessments are based on house values.
So, am I mistaken? Was that not mentioned last week and they said, yeah, there's different rates or something?
No, I actually asked the question because my brother, who's a real estate attorney, said you should find out and see, are they getting any sort of reduction in their tax rate? And that's when Christine quickly said, nope. I'm like, oh, okay.
think that's, once again, as far as we probably can take the conversation. But I hope some of this has been helpful, even though I know most of it wasn't welcome. Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda is the FY 2024 budget and specifically the financial forecast.
So I gave you copies of the financial forecast last week, along with the fiscal 24 budget calendar. Just want to call your attention to a couple of things on the budget calendar. We'll actually be opening the town meeting warrant at our next meeting on November 15th. And we will be closing that warrant in January 10th. When we did our discussions with the warrant committee after the whole process last year, it was both my staff and the warrant committee had discussions about opening the warrant earlier and closing it earlier is more helpful so that they can get a handle on what we're talking about in the warrant articles, so that we're not still trying to find money in February or March when that's already been decided for the warrant. So we apologize, we're moving that up a little bit, but I think it'll make for a much smoother process for everyone.
Yep.
And then right now we are scheduled for the town meeting warrant hearing on March 20th, which would give us the town meeting warrant to the printer on March 28th, which I know a few people in my building have laughed at, but we are shooting for March 28th to go to the printer.
Right after the annual election, wow.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And then the general fund forecast will be posted. If you have any questions, I know you've had a couple of weeks to look at it. And this is really just a roadmap for us to look at. And I want to caution people when they're looking at it, this is not, these are not our annual budgets for 23, for 24 to 27. This is just a roadmap. This does not indicate any change in the level of service. It doesn't indicate any change in Mass General laws. And it implies that we will have the same historic trends we've been experiencing and the same number of employees. There's no increase in the number of employees represented in this. I do want to call your attention, the memo does discuss what our assumptions are, and I do want to point out that we have not included any discussions about the Tri-County Vocational School. There have been more meetings happening with Tri-County, and it appears that will be taking place most likely within fiscal year 2026. And we'll have some more information coming to you, and Tri-County is setting up meetings with boards of selectmen to have those discussions about how we're going to pay for that and how it's going to be moving forward.
Okay.
So as we start to get more information on our trends from fiscal year 23, we'll update this 5-year forecast, and we will then include what we anticipate will be the Tri-County School as well.
Comments, questions?
No, this one's all new to me, so I'll just take this all in.
Pete?
This is the first official forecast that the town has done. We've always had an informal forecast, but this is the first one that we have done officially.
And it's very much appreciated, so thank you.
You're welcome.
And the budget calendar is appreciated too. Thank you for that.
Yeah, this was helpful.
It's just
Now I
Christine
just
had
need
a
to
hard
hold
time.
everybody to it.
It's just Christine had a hard time finding Eye of Frog and Tail of Newt this year, so. Christine, I had one comment about it, and I don't know whether there's, I'm assuming there's not a prescribed format, but as I read through it, I thought it was great, recognizing that it was sort of a steady state forecast. Yes. The only question I had is whether it would make sense to add a paragraph at the end that I titled it Recognized Uncertainties.
Mm-hmm.
And the things I had written down was, funding of a new school is kind of a big deal. The inflation impact on really town costs in general, but I was particularly thinking about labor costs. The recognition of the projected start of revenue coming in from the state hospital. Mm-hmm. The sale of other town land, and again, not to be specific about anything, but recognizing that there are these concrete, and now you just mentioned the Tri-County VOTEC. So it's both uncertainties in terms of cost that we could get hit with, but also uncertainties in terms of revenue, without being specific and without building it into the projection, simply acknowledging that these are some things that probably will perturb the projections one way or another. Those are I thought of four of them, and then you just mentioned the Tri-County. So I think that would be helpful for a projection like this, to just call those things out.
Absolutely, and I think as we go into, obviously this being our first one, as we go into and expand to fiscal year 28, all of those will start to take a little more shape and be included within that.
Okay. Committee, next item, we're done, right?
Yes, we're done.
Okay. Committee and board appointments. First, to accept the resignation of Gus Murby from the OPEB Trust Committee.
Sure about that?
You know, I am.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Next, appoint Steve Callahan to the OPEB Trust Committee.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
And
aye.
he's aware of it.
And, yeah, Steve is aware
He's
of
on
it.
here. I didn't see his hand pop up.
Although I want to come back in 1 second, I got a question for you, Mark, on that, but next, third one is appoint Karen Smith to the Community Garden Committee, and that was, I assume, with
Yes.
blessings all around. Okay, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Those are approved. Mark, we had one other young person here in town who asked to be appointed to the OPEB Trust Fund Committee. And at first, just nonchalantly said, well, just make another seat. And then we realized that the legal document establishing the Trust Fund Committee specifies there would be 5 members. Would we be compliant with that legal requirement if we appointed an associate member? And the only reason to do it is this is someone who has some background in finance, but who's a relatively recent grad who is just interested in, you know, being involved, so it's.
Well, I mean, they're free to go to the meetings, at public meetings.
I know.
Really, you can't have any
can't.
without amending the document.
Okay, well then, maybe what we just
I'll
do
extend
is
it
reach out
invitation
and
just to-
are sincere, and it's not a burdensome thing, because we tend to meet only more, I'm no longer on the committee, tended to meet like once or at most twice a year, so it's not
okay.
it's not a,
Not a huge thing.
yeah, it's not a huge thing. Okay,
I'm gonna actually ask you to hold on number 10. I don't have a final amount for that yet. Unfortunately, I thought that would come in today. I don't have that, so I'm gonna hold that
Okay.
until the 15th.
okay, can do that. What about 11?
We are holding 11.
So
We
they-
were holding out, they were going to send the contract back to us, and they did not. I
Yep.
don't know if they'll have any changes, so.
Do we, and this is, as I understood it from talking with Brittany, the issue there is not, it's not their proposal or anything is the issue, it's actually just their acceptance of a town standard form
Right,
contract.
they sent us their contract, and we sent them back our contract.
Okay,
So.
okay. Next, vote to authorize the town administrator to sign the license agreement to allow Watson Film Productions to use a portion of Stonegate Drive on the MSH grounds to film on Saturday, November 12th, between the hours of 6:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m.
Correct, that is as we previously discussed.
Yep, that's good, yeah.
So, have a motion to,
So moved.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. That's approved.
And then, just moving to the consent agenda, I would like to, if you're gonna vote it all together, I would like to hold the citations, for the Eagle Scouts.
One quickie, so we're not doing this, the,
Yep.
number 13, for the green?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So the next one is authorize the chair of the
Yes.
Board of Selectmen to sign the Green Community Annual Report.
I'm happy to move that, but I
Especially
think
'cause
we
it's
need
due
to do
Friday.
it, but it is a remarkably confusing document.
Yeah,
I find it.
I forced
Maybe-
my way through it the last time I was chair. I will force myself through it once again, not because it's, not to learn about it, but not to learn about how the report is, but to actually catch up on the data that's in the report. Now that I've figured it out, I understand it has to be signed by Friday, so I won't
We
sign
need
it
to do it.
tonight because I haven't read it yet, but I will sign it, but before Friday. So, okay.
Well, I appreciate you putting your eyes on it, because when I
Yeah.
look at it, I don't understand it.
Well, I tell you, the first time, I just had a basic rule that when someone said, well, here's the cover sheet, sign it. I said, no, I'm not gonna sign a cover sheet on a report I haven't read.
Right.
Not knowing what I was getting myself into when I basically said I want to see the report. But then, when I did read the report, it is somewhat confusing because it's all implemented on technology, but I was blown away by what the Energy Committee has accomplished as of 4 years ago. So I'm actually looking forward to reading it again this year to get the updated. And I would encourage anyone who has the mental stamina to be willing to try to navigate that report to take a look at it, because this is not a small impact this committee's had on our town over the years it's been in existence. So,
I'll send out, make sure you all have a copy.
Okay.
I think I may have sent it out this afternoon.
so I
We
think.
had internet, we had no
Yeah, I know.
internet at work, so this
I
was.
think Pete moved, yeah, I got it for sure.
Okay, that may have been once it
So
came
it made
back.
it. Pete, I believe, has moved to authorize me, need a
Second.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries, okay. And I have to do that by Friday.
Yes.
before
And
Friday.
then on the consent agenda, sorry, I was jumping ahead. If we can just hold the Eagle Scout certificates outside of
Yep.
the consent agenda, I did
Yep.
not have a chance to get those prepared. We had printing issues when we lost our internet today.
Okay, thank you. So,
Definitely tech
the consent agenda, Medfield Public Library requests for a one-day beer wine permit for a wine and craft night on Thursday, December 8th from 6 to 8 p.m. Belforge Arts Center requests to place sandwich boards promoting the December 2nd holiday stroll in the usual locations starting on November 18th. And there is a number 18 here, sign the proclamation for Herbert Burr on the occasion of his 95th birthday. Number 19, request to place sandwich boards promoting the MFI Angel Run from November 11th to December 4th at the corner of North and Main Streets and the corner of South and Route 27. And finally, item 20, Zulo Gallery requests a one-day beer wine permit for Saturday, November 5th from 4:30 to 11:30 p.m. for a benefit music concert for the Zulo Gallery and Ukraine, and approval to place signs advertising the benefit concert at the following locations: the transfer station and North and Main Streets. We have a motion to approve those items on the consent agenda.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
They carry. Okay, deferred. And then, we didn't have any meeting minutes. We still have a set that's
We have a set that's
outstanding,
out,
but,
yep.
yeah, okay. Town administrator updates.
Just want to give everybody an update on early voting. It's going incredibly well. We've had 260 people in the last week come in to do early voting. And Marion updated me today to let me know that we've had 2,552 mail-in ballots that have been sent out to Medfield residents.
That's
So-
great.
And they've been coming in pretty steady, so
Okay,
good.
great.
People seem to be taking
Okay.
advantage of it. And the elevator is working. Just jinxed that, but everything seems to be going well.
Okay.
That's it.
The next meeting is November 15th, and then we have two in December, on December 6th and December 20th. Selectmen reports.
I have not been very social between, unfortunately, leaving here last meeting, having a sick dog, and then cracking my tooth and being in agony through yesterday morning. I was not very social and talking with a lot of people.
Okay.
Not gonna lie.
Great, okay. Pete?
I went to a MMA presentation, that's all I did.
Okay. And I think all I have is we had a brief meeting with the town planner and the chair of the development committee this morning, actually, to it. Basically, we decided that we would put a control point through Sarah Raposa on all communications between Trinity and the town, just to keep that under control. Trinity's trying to put this development together, going through the process, and we want to make sure that we don't have lots of inputs coming in from various parts of the town. So Sarah is going to be the focal point for anything passed in either direction between us and Trinity, just to keep things sane. And the Community Choice Aggregation Committee is having a Zoom call, doing this off the top of my head now, on November 7th at 3 p.m. to discuss the upcoming DPU public hearing. So basically, the good news is, we submitted the plan to get our Community Choice Aggregation Program accepted by DPU. People were telling us the DPU is so slow, it was gonna take forever, and somehow or another, DPU has figured out how to expedite that process, where they are planning a public hearing, and I believe it's November 22nd. And I think that, again, is also a public hearing by Zoom. So it's sort of, I think, kind of a pro forma activity, but nonetheless, it's an important legal step in getting the Community Choice Aggregation Program up and running. So, and I think that's all I had. We had no kids at our house for Halloween. Our neighbor, Susan Cronin, my wife checked around 8:30, and they said they had 20, and I checked with Susan this morning at 20, they had 27, but that's because they cheated and they put a lighted walkway out to Kmart rather than on Harding Street like us. And Bill, I'm not sure if. 102? Are you still, is your driveway still operating, or was last night? So I missed the train on that one. I figured
Full-size
we would.
candy bars?
And we had a good crowd at Metacomet. It was
Yeah.
fun from about
Yeah.
5:15 until probably 7:45.
It's just not the same when you're just sitting there, and you gotta make sure you buy the candy you like to eat when you live on Harding Street.
No, we had a movie going. We had all sorts of stuff.
Ah,
Movie showing, The Great
movies.
Pumpkin.
They
So
probably-
kids, we had little kids that wouldn't leave. Like, come on, we gotta go.
That's not even fair. That's not even fair. So anyway, I think that does it. Have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This ends our meeting. Thank you very much to everyone who's still listening or still here. Great.
We didn't miss anybody down here, right? Was there one question?
I hope, I went dead, so.
Oh, we provide a summary. Okay, so